Welcome to Death on Call, AC-130 crew, camaraderie, chaos, and confessions. I'm your host, JL Pelt, former AC-130U model, Spooky Gunship Loadmaster. This podcast isn't about me, and it never will be. It's about the crews, my brothers and sisters in arms, who flew, fought, and kept that flying howitzer in the fight, turning it into the most feared, lethal, and in-demand close air support platform across the entire global war on terror and every major contingency since. This is your space, an open mic for anyone who's ever crewed an AC-130. Gunners, FEs, NAVs, FOCOs, EWOs, Loadmasters, sensor operators, pilots, whoever, to share your real stories, what it was like in the dark and what it meant then and what it still means now. The triumphs, the terror, the brotherhood, the shenanigans, and yes, all the good, bad, and ugly that came with it. No agenda here. No declassifying secrets. We're not diving deep into the missions themselves. We're talking about the symphony of chaos you experienced every time those engines roared and the guns came alive, no matter which model you flew. I thank my gunship family for their service and thank you for tuning in. Buckle up. We are cleared hot and gun ready. Welcome to the circus.
Check in. Crew. Voices in the dark. Altitude and attitude. Laughter over scars. Death on call. We ride that line together. Stories from the sky. We drag them through the weather. Death on call. We bleed in quiet confessions. AC hearts built from chaos and aggression.
Good evening. It is January 20th, 26. This is episode 2 of Death on Call. AC-130 crew, camaraderie, chaos, and confessions. Tonight, we have 2 former gunship guys, and we're going to pay homage to Spectre tonight for all the H models out there that have been giving me shit. Tonight, we have Captain Stan Hain, and we have former Captain Jon Shipley. Before we get started with their bios, I just need to say something. I appreciate all the downloads in the last several days. We are at, as of right about 30 seconds ago, we're at 597. Considering that it's just really been out throughout the community, I'm pretty impressed with that. So thank you all for listening. On top of that, let me go ahead and start tonight with this podcast is not for everyone. It is not meant for everyone. If you're easily offended, please don't listen. There will be foul language, and there will be things that you may not find humorous, but it is how we deal with what we've been through. Like the theme song says, laughter over scars. So I've only gotten 1 or 2 negative feedbacks, and they weren't gunship guys, so it doesn't matter. With that being said, let's introduce our guest tonight. We'll start with Captain Stan Hain with his bio, and these are better bios than I got from Briveld last week. Happily married with 3 kids, born and raised in central Pennsylvania. Joined the Air Force in 2006, right out of high school. AC-130H Spectre Gunship Loadmaster from 2007 to 2010. First year at Hurlburt, and then helped move 16th SOS to Cannon Air Force Base. In 2010, he Palace Front to the PA Air National Guard. Was an EC-130J Loadmaster, mission instructor and evaluator from 11 to 2020. In 2020, he says he got his brain transplant and became an officer. From 23 to 24, he did undergraduate CSO training. 25 to present, he is an MC-130J CSO initial mission qual. 6 deployments, over 3,100 hours as a Loadmaster, 700 combat hours. And he says Tech Sergeant was still the best rank he ever held.
That's right.
Welcome to the show, Captain Hain.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you reaching out and letting me come on here and talk about the good old gunship days, or boom boom ship, as I like to affectionately call it.
Yeah, call whatever you want, man. It's your show. So also tonight we have former Captain Jon Shipley, and this is his bio. Jon Shipley is a former U.S. Air Force captain and AC-130 electronic warfare officer. EWO, who managed to end up on both sides of the classic Spectre versus Spooky sibling rivalry, one of the few operators qualified on the H and U model, thanks to the Air Force's wild cross-flow experiment. He served as Chief of Tactics and Chief EWO in the 16th Special Operations Squadron, plus planner roles at both the 16th and SOS, with deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Korea that delivered endless "what were we thinking" material. Gifted the honorary title of Sweaty O by the enlisted crew dogs for getting in the trenches and sharing the grind alongside them. Jon brings a booth baby's perspective and smooth skin, beeps and squeaks, mission planning, chaos, shenanigans, and the fine art of turning strategy into airborne mayhem straight from the booth to the mic. Expect one nerd's insights laced with the kind of humor only gunship crews understand. Welcome to the show, former Captain Jon Shipley.
Wow. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on tonight. I mean, there's a lot to unpack to start with that. But first of all, what I really want to say is I get to stand in the shadow of giants on the H model. I was just there for 2 years. So the fact that I get to be included with the Spectre boys is pretty freaking cool. Thanks for including me on it.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and admit tonight, I mean, with most people I'm going to have on the show, I have a conflict of interest because I was either in the unit with them or, served with them, worked with them in some capacity. However, with these two particular, one was my best friend from the day we got to EAUC all the way through SEER, where I took some extra beatings while he watched and wouldn't say anything, which is great. Through BLM, Little Rock, and then by the time I got to the 19th, he was already almost checked and out. He's also the godfather to my children, and I'm not Catholic.
Well, we all make mistakes.
On top of that, we shared a lot of meals, a lot of crying over, heartbreak and life's just cruelty. I can say with both these guys, a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
Jon Shipley, the same. Yes, we were fraternizing as officer enlisted, being friends outside of work, but that's how you do in gunships. He was over, we got to Cannon, we spent all the time we could together, duck hunted all over that damn state. And, he became part of the family as well. So I'll try not to be too soft on these guys tonight. And tonight, they're going to get to talk about what they want to talk about. And I apologize about the audio last week. Once again, I want to blame it on Brian Belton because that's where the blame needed to be gone to. However, I found out since he is a audience favorite. They have just lapped up his Southern California mentality and the fact that he didn't realize people died from lightning. So that being said, I just wanted to put all that out there. Let's get started with the debrief. So, Stan, Captain Hain, we'll start it the way we kind of started every time, give me first impressions, thought process, getting to gunships, how you got there, whatever you want to do with that up until before you left the 19th.
Okay, right on. Yeah, so I came into the Air Force right out of high school, and the time frame, Iraq, Afghanistan were, in full force. So being the, red-blooded American kid, whatever you want to call it, I was like, yeah, let's I wanted the most combative job I could get as an Air Force guy, right? So I was in delayed entry for about 15 months. I had to do this pesky little thing called my senior year of high school. But anyway, so I knew I was going to be a Loadmaster pretty much the entire year. And at the time I was like, yeah, man, I want the most combative job I can get, right? So gunships, right? AC-130, right? Shoot and kill and do what they do, right? But I go through EAUC where I met this weird Texan dude. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, some more. But anyway, so we're I'm
Watch your dirty horse mouth.
right. Oh, come on. We go all the way back to the point where sitting there in that briefing room, going in the chamber and stuff. But anyway, man, like we when we started going through, at the time and going through like BLM at Altus and all that, where we got fill out our dream sheet. I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to be like Hercs or 17s or something like that to get to fly around the world and do a thing as a load and get to see all kinds of cool stuff. Well, I got my original wish. But we got our orders out of there, and that was where I found out I was going to be on the gunship. So I'm like, well, I got my original wish. So off I went after BLM, LIQ at Little Rock at the time. We did just the airland stuff. Then from there to Hurlburt for mission qual in the H model gunship. So obviously me being I like to research stuff the best that I can. I found out, the history of the H model and the Spectre gunship. That's the true gunship. I don't care what you say, buddy. Try. Keep trying, right? But, like you said, that brotherly love between the two birds. Anyway, like, initial impression. Obviously, there's what you think of as being a loadmaster and, like, what you think you're going to do, and then you find out you're on gunships. And like they talked about last week too, like you keep hearing the stories. Oh, you're just going to shovel shells. You're just going to shovel shells. That's what you're going to do. I'm like, what? And then I get to training and realize like, okay, like I'm not going to be what I thought in regards to being load, like kicking pallets and people and rigging loads and stuff like that. Like this is more about the mission of the airplane, and this is how you fit into it, right? So, we're an aft scanner. As I always like to say, I'm face down, ass up. I'm like a boom operator without a boom. So, I'm just realizing like
maybe explain that just a little bit more of where it's located, because I realized I didn't do a good job of explaining to anyone who wasn't, a gunship guy.
Yeah, all good, man. And like I said, I think we all get excited and just talk about things and assume people understand. But yeah, so the Loadmaster on the H model, just like on the U, we had a half scanner position. It was basically like a half sphere window, so a half circle, and affectionately called the bubble, that sat in the cargo door of a C-130, so the very ass end of the airplane. And there was what they called like the aft scanner's couch, which is basically just like this big matted bench, if you will, that you laid on and stared out the window. You were the guy that was looking for missiles and bullets and helping scan for anything that's coming at the plane, and the only one with the vantage point below the airplane. So, that was kind of our, I would say like the claim to fame of what the load could do is you could scan the one place nobody else could, and that was below. Weird, like we're gunship guys right over the target. They like to shoot at you because they're kind of pissed that you're killing them, So anyway.
Yeah.
So my, initial impression was just obviously very different than a normal loadmaster. And then just like realizing too, I think like the importance of like what we did and from that position, because of that reason, like we were the only ones that had that vantage point. So, if we were going to get shot at, more than likely it was going to be from, that type position. So it was, coming on me to make sure that I'm always on top of my game. And the biggest thing too is just so much to learn about the plane. Like we were more of a systems guy, so than a normal loadmaster. Like they trained us in and out of the different things. Like we were chatting it up before about like, some of the things started to pop back into my head about the different systems we had in the plane that were necessary. But I mean, that's my biggest thing, man. Just biggest realization was the kind of responsibility that you had. They talked last week about how young you were. Like, well, I can't drink, but I can sit here and try to save this $100 million something airplane and these, 13, 14 other cats on the bird. That's what I need to do. That's what I'm responsible for, from that aft scanner position.
Roger. Okay. Well, Jon Shipley, to you, what can you talk about, sir?
What can't I talk about is probably more along the lines. You want me to do the same answer of like how I got into the Air Force or what?
Well, whatever you want to say about it. I mean, yeah, you can. And then, maybe, I mean, did you get what you wanted with your dream sheet and your perception when you first got there and you met those EWOs and things like that?
Okay. So I came into the Air Force by way of the dirty ROTC. So I am not a ring knocker. More
Thank you for
power
that,
to
sir.
those ring knockers out there, but I am not one of them. But I came through ROTC, and actually I came through because I needed to pay for school. I wasn't the smartest of the cats in school, and I had lost all those cool and financial aid packages because I was
But
having
don't you
too
have
much
like
fun.
an aeronautical engineering degree or something to that effect?
It's an aerospace engineering degree.
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
So I wanted to be an astronaut. Like straight up, that was my dream, was to be an astronaut. And being naive, I was like, oh, the best way to go there is, well, let's just build rockets and I'll be an astronaut. And then I quickly found out that the guys that ride rockets aren't the ones that build rockets. And I was really disappointed by that. So when I needed money, the Air Force was offering up free rides for aerospace engineering degrees. It was like the very tail end of free ridedom in ROTC world of full scholarships that they, from what I understand, and maybe it's different now. I mean, this was 20 something years ago at this point. They did away with that program and made you pay for a lot more of your own schooling. So I finished my last 2 years with ROTC and decided that I wanted to fly. I didn't have the eyesight to be a pilot. Again, naive. I didn't realize that there were like waivers in the military for like literally everything. So I was like, oh shit, I don't have the eyesight for this. So I decided I wanted to be a navigator. And at the time, it was right when the term navigator was being phased out and the CSO terminology was being phased in. And for those that aren't familiar, that's the combat systems officer. They renamed the infamous or the famous and high history, and well, I'm going to call it prestige, even though we were second-class citizens.
That's because you were a you.
Anybody that, oh shit, what the hell was that? We used to call it. Now you're going to test me on all my old school knowledge. So because I was a U model first, what's the flight deck bulkhead number?
245.
245. Anything after 245 was a second-class citizen. But
No, that's you lived in the air conditioning in the BMC, the Battle Management Center. I don't want to hear it because we had to turn bleed air and aft packs off. Y'all still got AC.
Yeah. See, now you say that, but the flight deck also never went without heat or air conditioning. So
Of course not.
And since we're talking H models tonight, I'm gonna ride on my H model heritage. We didn't have fucking shit.
Pressurized. What?
And I deployed to Afghanistan in the fucking winter, so it was fucking cold all the time. So went to be a navigator, and then through nav school, day one I said I wanted AC-130. So Stan and I have something very similar. That was my dream sheet numero uno. Was gunships, and as we were going through, you have two tracks in the nav world, at least back then. Maybe Stan could talk about it since he went through nav school way later and whether or not they still do something similar. But they had two tracks. They had panel nav and they had the EWO track. So panel nav would be a traditional navigator. Anybody that wasn't electronic warfare and wasn't a FOCO, the fire control officer or the WISO, the weapons system officer, they had two tracks for that. And the panel nav track had very little gunship drops, very little special ops drops. It was all essentially straight C-130s or a couple B-50s. And at the time, there was two nav schools. There was one in San Antonio and one in Pensacola. And the only way that you got F-15Es or B-1s was if you'd gone through Pensacola. You were totally barred out of those two aircraft if you didn't go to Pensacola. Since then, San Antonio was shut down. It all streamlined through Pensacola, and I have no idea at this point what that looks like, but that's what it was almost 20 years ago.
Okay, so you got to the 19th.
So I got to 19th, and that was as an EWO, and that was pretty eye-opening thing to show up because it was Christmas of 2007, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Brand new winged navigator, and thought knew what I was supposed to be doing, and here you are just throwing in head first, fire hose on, and told you better drink or you're gonna drown. So that was pretty sweet as a Christmas present. But being a gunship guy, it was a Christmas present. So that was. I really won't talk about the 19th on this one. How about that? Just because I didn't go to, I went to U models out of the 19th rather than the H model.
Okay.
So,
yeah. What'd you feel?
So fast forward several years, 2011 rolls around. They decide, hey, we want to do this super sweet program because the 16th is just losing nonstop attrition because somebody had the bright idea of putting a heavy as shit airplane with immense amounts of drag and a very high altitude hot air like environment, and said that sounds like a great place to go train in the middle of August. And no one wanted to do that, so everybody that was had an opportunity was taking that opportunity to get out, and they said, well, you need to figure out a way to keep people around, and so that was the program. So in 2011 I got the orders to go to the 16th. I ended up with a modified syllabus, so I did not do the full up H model training. It was their first attempt at doing a transition, so it was highly shortened. It was essentially teaching the only things that were different between the gunships, and that doesn't really matter for this conversation. But got out of, oh shit, what the hell was that? The 550.
551st.
Yeah, 551st. Got out of that, and what was funny was that I was never actually assigned to the 551st. I was from day one assigned to the 16th and just went to school over at the 551st. So I wasn't even an actual student per se.
Do you think that's because they were like, look, these guys are already having to eat a shit sandwich by being basically non-volled to come here, and so like we'll make them fly with the first, but we have to like welcome them into the squadron or there is no chance? I mean, was it incentivizing you?
That's a good question. Two things on that one. One, it's funny that you say non-volled. I was actually non-volled. I declined my orders to the 16th because I was inside my window.
Remember that.
To say no to the change. How the hell did that work out with JAG? Because I ended up going to the Inspector General, because back in the day, those damn order machines, they couldn't figure out how to make them work when an officer said no to an assignment. Apparently, they had never had anybody say no.
An option had so much dust on it, they didn't know what to do.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do. So I didn't have enough active duty service commitment for the change in airframe, which was, I think it was a 3-year commitment, but I did have enough ADSC, the active duty service commitment, for the PCS. And so the Air Force said, guess what? You're going to go anyway. You have your get out of jail card already in hand, and then you're going to the 16th anyway. So I did get non-volled. I do think that it was an incentive program, but I don't necessarily believe it was because it was the shit sandwich that was getting delivered to you. I do think it was because gunship guys took care of gunship guys regardless of whether it was an H or a U. And everybody recognized that the cats coming over from the U models and the cats coming to the U models from the H models were going to be good crew dogs. They weren't going to be pieces of shit that you're going to have to weed out, that they were going to be good guys that came over and they were going to do a good job. I would like to ask Stan about the sibling rivalry and the hatred of U model cats. And I want to ask that because here's the preface or the context to it. As a U model guy, we always were like, oh yeah, those H model dudes just hate us because we stayed in Florida. And the U model guys were like, those H models just hate us because they weren't cool enough to stick around in Florida. And when I got to the 16th, I was deathly afraid. One, I was like, I already got a strike for being a U-boat guy, and I got a second strike for declining my orders to the 16th. Like, that's the I didn't want to be here answer. And you were bailing on your brothers. So I was really afraid, but they welcomed me with absolute open arms. In fact, the very first day I rolled in, I didn't have a 16th patch to put on my shoulder. So I was wearing my 4th patch. And I walked in the door and John Valla looks at me. So he was the chief evil there at the 16th.
Oh, yeah.
And so Valla looks at me and he goes, "You're out of fucking uniform." And I was like, shit, I have so much trouble. And he pulls his 16th patch off his shoulder and throws it at me and goes, "You got the wrong patch on your shoulder, dude." And like, that was, even right now, it's choking me up. Like, I was like, holy shit, this is like the coolest place on earth. It might be the shittiest location on earth, but this is the coolest place on earth.
I can attest to, you were never, I mean, you have a great smile, but you were never like a happy-go-lucky dude at the 4th.
Mhm.
But at the 16th, I did definitively notice a difference because I mean, I guess I was never part of it, so y'all have to speak to it, but it felt like just not a different culture, but a different expectation out of you from what I saw. It seemed slightly more, I don't know if it's because everybody knew there was an execution date coming up at some point, that it was just a little bit maybe different. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Stan, talk about H model gunship culture, a little bit, and then John, y'all come back, y'all talk about it.
Yeah,
the differences.
Well, I think like that's like John hit on it. There is, I think, with the 16th, and like I said, I started at Hurlburt. That's where the first little over a year of my career started, and then I got my life without parole sentence, which is the affectionate way of saying I got my orders. But I actually volunteered, which I had a bunch of different reasons. One of them being like first in, first out, right? But more or less the line of like, hey, this is the future. This is the way the squadron's going. Like, I'm gonna head out there. So I got to see the 16th go from being the H model, or one of the gunship squadrons at Hurlburt, to now we were completely picking up and moving to Cannon. So complete new location and different way of operating, because it's not the same place. Like you talked about, we're going to take this heavy airplane and go to a place that's high, hot, and heavy, and which is the affectionate way of saying the performance of the airplanes isn't necessarily going to be the greatest. But I mean, get a flight engineer on here, you can talk about that. But all that to be said, like I think at least like from the 16th, like especially from like kind of the beginning of it to, I mean, at least till the first like 2 years that the 16th had a presence, because I left community in 2010. Was not that you're collectively getting screwed, but like it's one of those like the Air Force said it and I guess we're going. So like I think at least how I felt like going out there was, what, and how I felt from the beginning, because like you talked about the patch, I'm going to kind of get back to that. But anyway, like when we got out there, like our camaraderie almost had to be, because like at least when I first got there, it was me and 5 or 6 other gunship guys. Like a pilot's an AB. I don't know if Double D was the commander of the 551st when you were there. Lieutenant Colonel Dwight Davis, and he may have retired as a colonel, but he was a light colonel when I knew him. But anyway, like it was just me and like a couple other cats that were out there, and we were the 16th. We were the 16th SOS Det 1, as we said, the Western, detachment of the 16th SOS. So aside from just the historical lineage of the squadron, it was like, all right, we're the first cats at Cannon Air Force Base that are now establishing a gunship presence. It used to be Cannon was a 16 base, an F-111 base, and, we were the first AFSOC. We weren't the first AFSOC unit to be there. I think by the time we got there, it was like a year after AFSOC had taken it over. And I think it was like August of 07 was when AFSOC established its presence out there. And then we showed up basically a year later, but we were the first gunship guys. So I would say like unit pride was, at least the way I felt from having come into the squadron. Like I said, I was only in the squadron. I got back from my first deployment and then PCS'd. So all that to be said, like at least like the way we felt with the 4th was, yeah, okay, there was the sibling rivalry, like, oh, you guys don't have the performance, even though you're a newer airplane. it was still, hey, whatever. We're the ones that had to go out there. But at least for me, like, I just wanted to carry going out there as we're establishing a presence at Cannon. Like, we are the 16th SOS. We're Spectre. Other than the 47 and the 119, we were the squadron that carried the original AC-130. We were the original AC-130 gunship squadron. And, you talked about like the patch, like, I think there's a late colonel in that. Doesn't matter. But I do remember that name. It's funny you brought him up. Yeah.
So I had just a quick thought for those listening that don't understand the story of going to Cannon and the difference between a Air Force Special Operation Command base and a Air Combat Command base, which Cannon was. I had this thought, it's totally like Cousin Eddie showing up at Clark Griswold's house. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
You think about it, they show up and no, this is not a dig.
Into the drain. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds
yes. Yeah.
You gunship guys are here. Yeah. I heard.
Yeah. Back the RV in and, into this ACC base where everybody's, they are what they are. And these original AFSOC squadron comes rolling in like, yeah, that's not how we're going to do it anymore. I thought that, I just had that, I had to throw it out there.
Dude, that made me think of like a story. Like I was out there, like I said, being on the deck, like I was a senior airman went out there. So I'm like, I'm still new to the Air Force, right? But like I've been around the gunship culture and squadron enough to know, okay, like it's not about saying you're fucking good. It's about actually being that way, right? Like, and just how you carry yourself. Like, not arrogance. You just carry yourself a different way. Like one of the guys, like, and it happened, I forget what it was, but it was like, hey, you need to do this. And I'm like, well, that's not how we're going to do it. Like, it doesn't mesh with the way we do things. Well, if you do that, I'm going to talk to your supervisor. What if he doesn't care? Well, then I'll go to your flight commander. What if he or she doesn't care? What if I go to your commander? What if they don't care? Oh, you're a gunship guy. Yes, sir. I am. Like, and it's not a matter of like, you are better. It's like, I'm trying to get you to understand that this is the way that we operate. Not that it's better, it's just different. It's the way we deploy or we employ or whatever. It's different than what they've been used to. So, it was, again, not an arrogance. It was just, okay, this is how we do things. And this is how we need to execute our mission. And I just need you to understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'll even go back and say there's a subtleness of arrogance in there. Like, do y'all remember the sticker? The bumper sticker?
I was going to start the show with that one. If we want to offend the shit out of everybody to start with,
like a amount of like crew members and a receptacle device for
no, no, not at all.
Yeah,
no, that's a different one. And now you're on the hook to talk about it. So it would have been like 09, maybe 10, and I'm going to quote the sticker. We're not getting into any personal beliefs or anything like that. The sticker came out and it said, "I'm a gunship guy. You're a homo." And then I think the way I heard it, Shipley, if you heard it differently, please interject. But that like the wing commander or wing commander's wife, or I don't know, some full bird, somebody was in line in a drive-through in like Fort Walton Beach, and there was a gunship guy that had it on his truck, and they came back and told us we could no longer have those stickers on base. And you did what gunship guys do. We figure out what you're actually saying, and then we go find a reg and we find a way around it. And so with the new stickers that came out said, "I'm a gunship guy. You know what you are." And it was just, it was this, on the nose, kind of right back in your face, because these were like the most heavily awarded AFSOC units outside of an STS, a Special Tactics Squadron. I mean, it is what it is. If you're like we talked about last week, if you're amazing, if you're good at your job and you can take care of your shit, doesn't really matter. The rest of it's semantics.
Right. I'm gonna take something out of the U models because it's across the spectrum between H and U's, and I think it kind of sums this up. So do you remember Jeremy Burke?
Oh, you talking to me? Oh, yes.
So when I got to the plans office at the 4th, Burke came to me, and he was chief of plans at the time, and he sat me down, and he equated it the way that, in my perception, encapsulates everything here was there is a difference between arrogance and supreme confidence. And the difference is if you're ever wrong. So as long as you're always right, you can have that attitude. But if you're wrong ever, expect to get your shit kicked in, because everybody's going to be holding it up until you get it wrong, and then they're going to hold it against you. So I always equated it, and maybe right, wrong, or indifferent. Other people might have different opinions, but in the gunship community, everybody that I dealt with, it was always how, as Stan said earlier, like, not whether or not you look the part, whether or not you can do the part. Can you do the job? And it was always about who can do the job and who can do the job better and continue to get better, that continual learning function of life. Because if you were going to ride that razor's edge between arrogance and confidence, you had better have your shit together.
Yeah. That's a good quote, man. I love that. That's oh man.
Well, when we go talk about U models, we can talk about Burke, and we can talk about
100%.
Some Army Rangers. We can talk about
we can talk about him driving us to an MLAT at Hunter Army Airfield in Savannah. It's like a 7-hour drive from Hurlburt Field, and like he did it in like 4:45. Like when we got out, I just fell out of the car. My eyes were locked in the back of my mind, because it was like thunderstorm the whole way, and he's got like 4-wheel drive high on and just hauling ass the entire way. And I just was like, holy shit.
Jeremy was my first real mentor, so I got lots of mad respect for him. So we could circle back to use the corporate term at some point. But on the H models, I'm right there with Stan. Like, I don't think it was arrogance. I think it was this supreme level of confidence and a laser focus on the actual mission. Like, what am I trying to accomplish? And I'm not going to let anything stand in my way. Kind of like Cousin Eddie. Like, if we want to go back to that as the analogy, like Cousin Eddie had a full shitter and he needed to get rid of it. Like, that's his mission. I need to get rid of it. Now, ACC and some other branches may have been like, well, you're going to have to drive over to the pit thing over at the truck stop and empty your gray and black water tanks. And Cousin Eddie's like, fuck that, I need to get rid of this shit. And there's a storm drain right there. I'm getting rid of this shit. So I don't necessarily see it as a bad analogy, or even one that's, I think it's actually pretty close, pretty awesome. Like, I know my mission. I know I need to know what to get done, and I'm not going to let anything stand in my way of doing it.
Right. It's just a difference between, on expeditionary AEF deployments versus being a special operations force enabler, and which is what Air Force Special Operations was. John, tell me about the major culture difference between U model to H. Like, what you saw, like first 90 days, like, shit, this is different.
So can I get heavy on this for a second? I know that we're supposed to be laughing a lot on this.
No. It's we try to stay in a humor vein, but obviously we're going to talk about some serious shit.
So one, it was that camaraderie and that instantaneous, like, welcome, brother, you're part of the crew. And there was no, well, you're just the FNG. For those on the call, the FNG is fucking new guy. There was nothing like that. It was just straight up, we respect all the hours that you got on the U model. We respect your expertise. you're here to help us and be a part of us, and welcome. That was the first thing. When I got to the 4th, and no digs on the 4th, because the 4th is huge. I mean, it's like 3-1 in size to the 16th in terms of manpower.
Well, it's also 17. It was 17 planes versus
y'all had way more.
seven.
Yeah, no shit. Like it just the sheer numbers. Like you were way more anonymous at the 4th than you were at the 16th. That, if I go on a slight tangent, I live in a very small town. I can't stay in the big towns. I live in rural Montana, and I hate going to the big town. And I like going to visit, but I don't like going to stay. And I loved all my time in gunships, but I loved the 16th the most. And I think it was because of that small town atmosphere. Like, yeah, everybody knew your business, but you knew everybody's business and everybody cared about you. Like when there was a problem, you had an issue, somebody called you or they came over and helped. I got a story about that at some point, but the heavy part was the 16th respected, honored, and drilled it into your head that you were not invincible. Whereas the 4th had never, suffered a loss. Like, let's be honest.
Right.
It was all H models. And the H models knew it. It was on every wall. In fact, that was one of the first things in the first 90 days of walking the halls, of seeing everybody's name on the fucking wall. And that was drilled into your head from day one that you were not invincible, that you could die, and that if you fucked up, that was a high probability of not just you, but the other 14 cats on that plane going down. So that was, to me, the two biggest differences between the 4th and the 16th. Not to say that the 4th didn't have that, but they did not lean heavily on it. In my experience, somebody else from the 4th might roll in and tell you it's different, but in my experience, that was my experience with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it was different. Like I said, I was never Spectre. I left the 4th and I left gunships totally and went to non-steered aviation little craft. But we had a couple Spectre guys in it, including our superintendent. And there was a different level of autonomy and big boy program. Like you said, coming from a big unit like that, I mean, 17 planes at a crew and a half apiece. I mean, there was a certain amount of people expected to be in that squadron all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in every squadron. It's good. And you have your good and you have your bad. And I never experienced what y'all experienced in the 16th being part of Spectre. And I don't think in particular or necessarily that one is superior to the other. It's different time frames. The birds were designed for different phases of technology and war. But I always found it hilarious that for the H model, as old as it was, they could take something off the shelves, plug and play, and be operating with it fairly quick. And the U models, it's like a 5-year program to get something, and by the time we field it, it's out of date. It's different.
There's a couple of reasons why that happened.
I know it's who held it's who held what contract and those things. I'm not gonna get into that, but it was just different. Okay, so covered the culture piece. Let's kind of come back from the total seriousness for a second and just kind of off the cuff question. Stan, let's go to you. What, in your opinion, what's the greatest gunship story you know? And you can't quote the two big ones.
You talking about like what I got to do, or just like the gunship itself?
It can be you. It can be the gunship itself, but you cannot quote the two big ones.
Jeez, the two big ones, man.
Do I even know these two big ones?
Yeah, anyway.
You want to tell the story.
Spirit and jockey.
Oh, okay.
Looking.
Oh, I thought you were talking about jokes, so I wasn't even going there.
Like,
No,
Shit,
no,
dude.
it can be it can be like, I'm not necessarily saying like the closest, shots or anything like that, but like the greatest gunship story, it doesn't have to actually be factually correct that it's the greatest.
Right.
It's just
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, man. Like, so obviously those two big ones you're talking about are the losses. So kind of tying into what John was saying, like, it was just, that was a respect thing. So it was always, we always remembered it. Hence, I guess they're still named out. There's two impact areas out of Cannon that are named Jockey and Spirit. So, which had its own little like back and forth, like from being in the squadron when that was the idea, like we had our own discussion about whether it was good or bad, but nonetheless, it's a respect thing, right? But to go into the greatest gunship story, I mean, I'll take it since this is our podcast, right? We're talking about our times. So there's twofold things when it comes to like the greatest mission, because I'll tell you about like what gave me the most pride, in being a gunship guy, because there's the two sides of the spectrum, right? Everything in life's got that yin and yang. But the point is so there's the mission you launch on. It's a tick, right? So
what's that stand for?
So, okay, yeah, troops in contact. So this is hey, good guys on the ground are in the middle of it and they need help. So, whether we're holding somewhere, waiting to go in, or we're sitting on the ground at, the home base, wherever we're at, it's, you need to get in the bird and get there now. So, but the twofold thing is, so you launch on the tick, it's probably what it is. And it's all right, you're talking to the ground team and, you're checking in. Hey, you do your standard check-in. We're won by, blah, 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 the normal spiel that we give checking in with the ground team. They're like, oh, by the way, like they talked about last week, like, yeah, you're cleared hot, So you're coming in and your contact with, the guys on the ground, the enemy, and you just start opening up. All right, arm 5, arm 6. Yeah, that's something that at least John got to understand.
Yeah.
I understood. You told me.
Yeah.
You explained it to me.
The real gun.
Yeah, that's
the real
right.
numbers.
Well, especially, it's the fact that like the funny part is like they were the same gun. Like you had for me, it was 5 and 6. I was only ever in the H, but hey, arm 5, arm 6, we're going DTA, which is dual target attack, different thing. Anyway, so you're rolling in on the target and you're just starting to, do the work, right? So whether it's personnel, equipment, houses, boats. Yeah, that's right. The Afghan Navy, we took it out one night. But anyway, like it's, you're just doing the thing and you're EKIA, you've got buildings destroyed, motorcycles, vehicles, whatever. Like you are just pounding on the ground to the point you made Winchester. If you talk about Winchester, it means you're out of bullets. So you're out of ammo. You got to go back to base and get more to do more of the good work that you're doing, right? So like you're getting to that point rolling in and you're waylaying, right? And there's those missions. So that's greatest, if you will, of all time. But then there's also the times where I've rolled in and we're established and we sat there for insert time frame. Whether it's, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever. And you do nothing but just hold overhead. But you know what you did? You gave homeboy on the ground a chance to sleep for the first time in, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Like, and you want to know why? Because they heard the hum overhead, right? Like, they knew the sound. And
MFSM or something like that. I don't know what it was in Posh 2 or whatever it was, but it was like the motherfucking Sky Murderers.
Yeah. Like it was,
and
they had the
it's that warm fuzzy you're providing.
Yeah. Like it was the story that it was told, whether there's truth or not to it, but they always say that too with like aircrew stories. Like they're like
10% truth.
10% accurate, 90% embellishment or completely fucking made up.
Or 10% accurate, 80% embellishment, 10% alcohol.
Yeah, well, there's that. Just saying. But like it was like the story of I don't remember where I heard it, but it was like they told a slick C-130. So slick is a term you use for like a normal just cargo carrying airplane. They got rerouted on the way back from wherever, and they said, "Hey, this is from the controlling agency. You need to go here. We need you to do 3 or 4 orbits and then leave." And the idea being is the guys on the ground were in contact, and they would go overhead and they would do their orbits like, "Hey, just do 3 left pylon turns and then leave." And, you could probably speak to this, both of you guys, of they roll overhead, they're, troops in contact, and silence, peace comes over whatever target area they're over. Nothing is happening. And then they leave. And like the point to that story is kind of back to what I was talking about, like this, like whether it was the sound or whatever, but they knew, like it was something that had been talked about where like they knew if they heard that sound and it was overhead, you were about 10 seconds from no longer being on this planet in your present form. Like it was, and it was like, it was a truth that like, or, whether it was true, who cares? It's a good story. But like they went overhead and took, and it helped them on the ground. So like getting back to like your original question of like the most important things or most important missions to me was that twofold aspect. There's you roll in overhead, you're arming your guns, you're doing the thing, and you're doing for, whether people want to admit it or not, the gunship's purpose is to kill people and break their shit. Like, that's the blunt way of saying it. Obviously,
I'll allow it. Yes, I'll allow it.
It's one of those, like, yes, there's more to it than just that. But we are an AC-130 gunship platform. We, that is what we do. There's a slew of other things that we do that aren't that dark, if you want to call it that. But it is the main mission of the airplane. Armed interdiction, right? So,
well, the A stands for attack.
Attack, yeah, weird. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's what we do, right? So, like that was the biggest thing, or most important things to me that I took away from my time was it was either I was being that, heaven sent thing, whatever you want to call it, to be able to just lay down lead, or you were simply there, and just because you were there, they got to sleep or be at peace. Air quotes is what my fingers are doing right now. But like, they got to, kind of relax a bit, if you will, because nobody was fucking with them then. If we rolled overhead and we were there and they knew that just from our sound, nobody was fucking with those guys. Nobody was fucking with my guys that night. So that to me were the two like biggest missions.
Yeah, it's good. That's kind of where I was trying to go with it. Johnny Ship, what about you?
Well, Stan's hit the nail on the head, at least in my experience as well. I had a little bit, I'll give the difference and then I'll circle back to the similarities. For me, I was, as the EWO, I was the most fangs in dude on the plane, if that makes sense. Sitting without a window, sitting with no offensive capability, and only defensive. How do I keep us alive? The rest of the plane is keeping the guys on the ground alive. I'm trying to keep us alive. So my perspective was the greatest mission that I ever had to do was the one that I didn't have to do my job.
Right.
Because that meant we didn't get shot at. That meant that we didn't just, cheat fucking death. That was the greatest missions. Now, it was fucking boring as hell, but it was the greatest missions when I did not have to do my job. But back to that idea of the second greatest thing of giving the ground guys some peace. With the H models, I had that with a Marine Corps battalion somewhere. I can't remember where, but our sole job was to show up and fly overhead in this entire battalion sleeping out in the middle of the fucking Afghanistan in the middle of winter in northern Afghanistan. And our only thing was to let them get, I think it was 6 hours of sleep or something like that. They had like 4 JTACs that were on a rotation. One was sleep, or 3 were sleeping at any given time. And we just needed to check in once an hour, make sure everything was still fine and everything was still good. And they were just hanging out with that ground force commander at probably their headquarters element. And that was it. All we did was fly around, drone, fucking burn holes in the sky. But that gave me probably the most amount of pride of going, holy shit, here's these dudes sleeping outside in fucking January. And because I look outside, it's January at my house and it's fucking cold. And I go, there ain't no way I'm sleeping outside in that. But here are these dudes doing it day in and day out. And not only just sleeping outside, but under the threat of getting killed every single day. So for us to be able to give that, as Stan put it, that sense of peace was awesome. My first experience with that was in the U model, so I'll tell it because it plays alongside here, of one of the things that as a gunship guy, we get a really unique perspective, and it's all AFSOC. All AFSOC manned aircraft get this unique perspective that we get to live with the people we serve. It's not like a fighter. It's not like the Navy guys flying back to an aircraft carrier or back to Al Udeid or back to Kuwait or, wherever they came from. We get to live with the guys we serve. So you actually put faces with call signs. You put faces with the actual dudes you're working with. And I'll never forget my very first deployment. And it was over Christmas to Iraq with the 4th. And one of the very early mornings, we went to chow, we went to breakfast, our dinner, since we were working, night shift, our dinner, breakfast for everybody else. And the guys we actually helped that night had flown back on the helos and came in and ate dinner or breakfast with us. And one of those operators got up and after he had had 2 bites of food, he was like, "Hey, I'll catch you all later," and he left. And I had made the comment, I was like, "Shit, he didn't even hardly eat his food. What's up?" And one of his operator buddies was like, "It's his kid's birthday, and he's gonna go call him." And that hit me like a ton of fucking bricks. Holy shit! If I hadn't been there, if our crew hadn't been there overhead of them in order to do what we did, which at this point was just, we prevented by alerting them to an ambush at the end of the day. We didn't shoot anybody that night, but we told them about it and they were able to avoid it and attack it. So the fact that if we hadn't been there, that dude might have died and his kid might not have got a birthday call, or his birthday call would have been, "Hey, your dad's dead." That hit me like a ton of fucking bricks and made the job real. Up to that point, it was all play. That made it real.
And so, to kind of caveat on that, how many GWOT missions go untold that was the actual fact?
I'll tell you from personal experience. I looked at my flight records today just so I could have this statistic for you, and didn't realize you were going to actually ask the question, but it's 110 combat missions between the 2 U models and H models. Only one of them did I ever shoot it.
It's crazy because it's just different. Because you just never know. So many times that mission, we talked about it last week and we're talking about it tonight. They're holding you off for noise abatement or, go hold whatever. And then they want you to be able to PID 15 miles out. Come on. At a certain point, it's just not even funny. But it goes from absolute silence and being a 13-man drone to all hell's breaking loose in every direction. The symphony of chaos has to be turned on. And there is no better equipped group of guys and gals than a gunship crew, because you can give them the absolute biggest clusterfuck. And within minutes, they have unfucked it. to figure out what is actually relevant and what's noise and where the threat is and how quickly we can eliminate it. And I think about that, like how many of those stories, like you just told, that if you were there and ground teams got to go home. There's so many missions that are reported, they don't make the news or a movie about or anything like that. But those guys on the ground know. They know. It ain't going to come up on the latest episode of whatever show out there. And it's just, I tip my hat to, anyone that's ever served in a gunship crew, deployed. Because, I mean, you're right. There are deployments where you don't shoot at all. Other than tweaking to stay current. But when it's, no matter what you're doing, whether it's, arming 2 and 3 in a DTA attack.
Hey, we're talking age models here. It's 5 and 6.
Okay, I'm sorry. 5 and 6. 5 and 6 in a DTA attack.
That's right.
Get it right.
Or whatever else, and you're handling shit. Or if you're just up there and you're just telling them what they, so they can get a quick respite and give them a warm fuzzy for a few hours. It's just so different, man, because you're up there and you're responsible for the 13 people in that plane, plus the team on the ground, and then their buddies over there. And I've just never been able to quite grasp or wrap my head around how amazing the crews are in both squadrons and can do what they do. I mean, shit that's just, like the risk analysis that you would put into some of this shit, and that's just like a Monday for us. I mean, or for those crews, for those squadrons. It's just there's an inherent level of risk, and the crews accept it, and then they go out and they execute. And it's not always peaches and cream and, rainbows and marshmallows and unicorn farts. It's just not. It's most of the time messy, a garbled mess, and you don't really ever have a full picture, even though you're trying to build it on the fly. And that's just, it just goes to the training. The formal training units, they work. They understand, because you're being trained by guys who have done it with less technology and less training, more real world experience.
That's a good question that you bring that up, that I got for Stan, since you and I, Pelt, we're removed from the situation at this point. What is that like, Stan? Like, since let's talk some nav school piece on that of
yeah, please do.
Of the difference between. So when I went to school, they had just phased out sextant navigation. Like, that's as far back as we went. We did Dead Reckoning.
We were reading about that in history.
And the INS. Like, so, I mean, our trainer at nav school was a C-141 navigator station. Like, plane had been retired for years. So what was it like actually going through nav school after you'd already been through one version of flight school?
So that's the other dynamic to it was like going through school as an enlisted guy versus going through as an officer, which is really a completely different discussion in how people are treated.
Just because the chow halls and y'all had 5-star gourmet.
Hey, by the way, I ate at the damn chow hall at Pensacola. There was me and 2 other enlisted guys. Yes, enlisted guys. Dude, it was funny. We'd be sitting, like, we're waiting to fly that day, and like, we're weathered out. So like me and these 2 other cats would be like, hey, you want to go eat at chow hall? And we're like, fuck yeah, we do.
I can't believe you ate with sweaties.
Yeah, well, dude, the funny thing is, and you talk about like enlisted officer or whatever, is like, you talk to the other like kids, and I can fucking call them that because one dude was like, "Yeah, I was 5 years old when you went on your first deployment." Like, eat shit, man. But point being, is he's like, no, I don't want to go there. It's like, why not? Like, and oh, by the way, the ice cream is just like being deployed, which is also something they didn't understand. But whatever.
What's that?
Yeah, right. But anyway, back to the point. Like, so nav school, like, and obviously, like, what I went through, like, the funny part, John, you talked about it, like, transitioning to the terminology now is CSO or Combat Systems Officer. Like, anytime somebody asks, like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a Combat Systems Officer. And it's like, you get the deer in the headlights. I'm like, it's a fancy way to say navigator, you know? And like, like, when you look at it, like, baseline, like, you're still the dude or dudette that's looked at to be, where the hell are we? So they still teach that. They still give you a whiz wheel. They still give you plotters. They still give you a paper chart, but it is still more, you know, focused on how to use the systems and stuff like that to be able to.
Because I thought Garmin replaced y'all.
What's that?
I thought Garmin replaced y'all in ways.
Dude, just like there's a system on airplanes called the FADEC, Full Authority Digital Electronic Control. They're 2 silver boxes that replace the engineer. I'm not trying to piss off any engineers out there. Like the brothers, you know, like, but, you know, the navigator and the engineer on a J model, you know, Herc were, you know, they aren't there on AMC. So they're just 2 pilots and a Loadmaster or 2 Loadmasters, whatever. But there's no navigator or flight engineer on the airplane. But, you know, technology, whatever, advancement, either way, there's still like, and I will throw this out to the engineers out there. I love you guys. And there was a guy in my guard unit too that brought it up, like the old H model, which both, you know, the U and the H model gunships were like, they had soul, was what this flight engineer told me. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. And there was a different sound of those props beaten into reverse than J model props. There's just something about it. But again, I digress. The navigator job and training right now it's still emphasized back, you know, because modern technology is great, but what happens if that goes away? Like, how do you ground speed, you know, and, you know, time and simple stuff like that? It's still taught, like it's still there. And the same way for, like, you know, gunship crews coming out of UCT, like they're still taught that basic stuff, but, you know, obviously once you get into gunship centric and stuff like that, I think nowadays even too, it's more about the system, you know, which is hence why they probably changed the name is, you know, you're a combat systems officer or operator, whatever you want to call it. So that's more the emphasis is because, you know, it is 2026, right? It's 26. Yeah. You know, and it's just different than it was, you know, like you're talking about like being a panel nav and stuff like that. Like that's reference that's still there, but there's like 1 or 2 airplanes, you know, that may still have a quote unquote panel navigator. Like it's just different nowadays. So, I mean, that answer like what you were asking, John?
Yeah, it does for me like at least. I mean, maybe not.
Yeah.
But I was always curious to hear about how things had changed over time. And because when I had gotten there, we were the first. I don't want to quote it because somebody will get on a comment and be like, that's bullshit. You weren't the first. So I was one of the first on the new, I think they called it the CSO 2 syllabus or something like that. I think I was the first or the second class on it. It emphasized so much on not relying on technology. We didn't even get to use GPS until we were, I think, the final phase. Like everything was INS and manual fixes to update the INS and dead reckoning only. That was it. And the first time we got to look out a window was in our final phase of low-level navigation. That was the first time we ever got to look out a window.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's so that stuff's still there, and they're changing the syllabi. Like they were changing it as I was there, but there's still that emphasis on the baseline skills, which I think still like kind of teaches, you know, like we're talking about like with the entire like gunship, you know, mentality, and probably even on the modern J model, AC-130J, like there's obviously I'm not in that schoolhouse, but like, I hope it's still there.
Yeah.
Like, there's still the baseline, not even just with the systems, but, kind of getting into the gunship mentality too. Like, this is where you came from, this is what you should still remember. You have all these awesome tools nowadays to be able to do your job and to do it better and act more accurately, whatever you want to call it. But you don't forget where you came from. And that's so a common thing I always say. And like to this day, like, I can, if we were on video, I'd show you, I have a name tag. I still wear the green flight suit, even though most people wear the 2-piece. Maybe I'm just nostalgic, whatever. But the point is like under my name tag, I have a pencil tab that says Gunship. And anytime, like, I'm in a conversation, like for whatever reason, I'm taking my name tag off, trying to describe something. Like, what's that? Like, oh, it's a gunship. Like, why do you wear that? Well, that's where I was born and raised. Like, in our world, we all have like where we're coming from. And for me, it's always going to be the gunship, because that's where, that was my first duty assignment. That was my first aircraft, whatever. But it was even told to me too, like after I'd moved on to the Guard, they're like, man, whatever they did to you in that world, like they did it right, because you understand what you're supposed to do, your job, whatever. And it's true. Like it's, the nature of the gunship. And like, I know we were talking about it before, like the emphasis, the seriousness, how seriously we take our job because we know what we do, like, and how important it is. We carry that with us. Like, at least that's how I have, like, through my career, is like, this isn't just something fun to do. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work too. And it's a lot of emphasis on being good and being right. Not because you can say it, but because you need to do that.
Because it matters.
Your job. So I'm sure I got off on a tangent.
Oh, that's a great tangent. I want to follow up on that one. Are you an Are you an AGR guy, or do you have a civilian job too?
I am what you call right now a drill status. Well, actually, I'm on orders, but I'm a drill status guardsman, meaning like I had another civilian job, and then I got orders to come here to training, and now like I don't have a civilian job, so I'm a traditional that's been activated for training. So all that to be said, I'll go through all of my training and stuff like that. And eventually I'll go back to being what they call a citizen airman or whatever, where I have my focus on and requirements and whatever as being, a CISO, but then I'll also have to get a real job. So, or there are full-time positions.
Okay. But. So that brings me to I want to ask this question, because I've got my opinion and my experience, and I want to see somebody else's, because I've never actually had the chance to ask another gunship guy. So this one will go for you too, Pelt, of does that laser focus from the gunship that makes you so good at that job in the military, does it ever become a detractor in the civilian world? And what I mean by that, maybe that's not enough context, that's too cerebral. Does it get you into trouble when you're like, nah, I'm right, this is the way we need to do it, and when somebody else is being stupid in the real world, the idea that we got to listen to everybody's opinions and take everything into account when you know that it's wrong? I'm curious to hear your guys' experience outside the four walls of the gunship.
I mean, if anything, it has taught me the innate value of true, authentic communication, good, bad, or indifferent. The plane's falling apart. I'm going to communicate it to the crew. Well, this is a shitty presentation. The customer sucks. Insert whatever. And our level of authenticity is not well received in the civilian world, because you have to put so much English on it to make it be not an HR violation.
What do you mean you can't just say you're a fucking idiot? Like, I don't get
Oh, bro. I mean, yeah, working in an oil terminal when I first came back, and like, to quote Chris Jetty, which I'll have on in 2 weeks. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, just so many times, just do your job, know what you're doing, and like, don't screw the pooch. But can't say that. It has to be like, Eric, we need to talk. Like this, you're not performing at the standard. Like, I can't stand the babying mentality. Like, call me a motherfucker and I'm a piece of shit. And I did not do my job. Tell me I could have killed everybody and I'll do better. But I don't do better in this performance in the civilian world, which probably goes to say why, just being honest, and I can take the embarrassment, why I've submitted 700 applications since August and still don't have a job after Doge cut my jobs. So, it is what it is. I'm a very concentrated, I'm like a barrel strength bourbon, cask strength, not everybody wants to ingest it, but those that do can appreciate it.
Well, I think too, like what you're saying is like the mentality of like being blunt and to the point, like, and whether it's, and I'm sure it's gunships too, because of the nature of what we do, but like as a flyer, like you're moving it like X amount of miles per second or whatever. Like you have to be direct to the point and you have to react. Like, and by reacting doesn't mean like blindly just doing something to do it. It's, which comes into like the level of comprehension and understanding of your job. Like that it's not just a good to have, it's a necessity. Because if you don't, that's when the airplane is still moving through the air. So if you aren't telling them, like TGMs are leaking freaking hydraulic fluid, which is, I guess, not a thing anymore. I guess they're electronic, but whatever. Point being, and TGMs are trainable gun mounts. It's whatever. But point is like you have to be on top of your game and you need to be reactive, not blindly, but with knowledge and purpose. And I think like in the civilian world, like for me, like kind of like John was asking about, like, what do you do on the outside? I've worked for like, when I wasn't on orders as a guard guy, I worked for like defense contractors. And like, so I'm still kind of in the same world, or at least with the same people that, speak the same way. But there was a period of time where I was working with a civilian company. I was fortunate that there were a couple other veterans that I worked with and like they got it, but like the civilian guys are like, huh? What do you mean? Like why do you think this needs to be done in the next like 2 minutes? Like, well, because if we don't, like, we're not going to be able to get to the end state that we want, which is what our mission and our requirement is right now. And like,
because Jamie Foxx said it needs to be done pretty fucking Ricky Tick.
Yeah. But like that mentality, like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the civilian world, but like, at least it's not something that you're exposed. I mean, maybe it's something you're not exposed to regularly, but like for me and like what I've experienced was more that sense of and drive and mission, whatever it is, is something that it doesn't always correlate to somebody who, not their fault, like hasn't had to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Like when you tell me this airplane needs to be ready to fly in the next 20, like, all right, well, then I guess I need to make sure the pre-flight was done correctly or whatever, but like, hey, here's a tick, get to the bird and fucking go. We're going to start 2 engines instead of 1 at a time, whatever. Like there's that sense of, okay, I know I need to do this, I need to do that, and I need to be ready for this, because if I don't, like that, I think there's that simple thing of like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, whatever, but like when you have that in the back of your mind, if I don't do my job correctly right now, people are going to die. Like it changes your mindset. Like you don't think about things the same way after that. Like right, wrong, or indifferent. Because like, yeah, when you start thinking about like, should I get the 100% or the 1% reduced milk or the whole milk today? Like that's not a life or death decision, you know, but it's the fact that like your brain gets rewired sometimes. Like you think about things a different way. At least that's how I feel. Like
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, the thing about coming from gunships that I will say has changed me long term forever. I can no longer think about immediate satisfaction, immediate result without weighing the 400,000 potentials that could ultimately cause or be caused out of whatever the decision is. Like typically the con list is so fucking long, I've become an Ewok. Like it's just, they could have this, they could have that, this could be there, over here, and then that. It's just like you have to thoroughly think it through. Impulsive decision making works occasionally, but not without a well thought out plan and being able to mitigate all of the negative.
yeah.
I'm really, not that I'm happy that everybody gets to have that same experience as me, but I thought I was like an N of one of being the only one who's had that. That's been my experience as well. That's why I asked the question. And it's taken me, I've been out now 12 years, going on 13, and it is still a struggle today. So for all the brothers out there and the sisters listening, that in terms of if you have an experience much like the three of us, you're not alone. Let me just say that. And I'm going to make a plug on it that if you want to talk about that some more, I'm more than willing to sit down and listen and talk about my experience.
On this podcast,
yeah,
right?
because it's fucking, it can be rough. I'll give you my 30-second, and Luke, I'm so sorry for making this the heaviest fucking episode that you'll ever have.
Hey, they cannot all be gutter
Well,
shenanigans.
fuck, I can never live up to Brian Belden. I mean, Brian is one of one.
But that's a Loadmaster. I know.
I can never live up to Brian Belden. Like, no matter what I do in the rest of my life, Brian has done something to eclipse that more than anything. And he did it in his fucking 20s. So, Brian, when you're going to listen to this one, in terms of mad love to you, brother, because you were one of my loads at one point on a deployment, and I got nothing but mad respect. So thanks, bro.
Yeah, dude.
But in terms of my experience on that one, it was really hard, and it still is sometimes, to identify what that is. This life and death, or is this not life and death? And your brain, I have the same experience, that your brain gets rewired, and it is really hard to deprogram that. And not saying that you need to deprogram it completely all the time, because the same fucking skill set that we've got makes you incredibly dangerous when it comes to the rest of your life, in a good way. Because when it does come to real life and death, you will be able to make that decision in a blink of an eye and what you need to do. So don't lose it, is what I'm going to say. But it was really hard, and still is sometimes really hard for me to identify, well, is this life and death, and do I need to take it that seriously? Or is it maybe not so important, and we can just deal with maybe less than perfection? Because, how do I want to put this one? As Stan said, when we fucked up, good people died. We had a really, in our lives, in the 16th and the 4th, in gunships in general, and hell, I mean, I'll extend that to all our AFSOC brethren, of when we fucked up, good people died. And so we held ourselves to an incredible standard that in everyday life is an impossible standard to uphold. Perfection is aspirational, not a realistic expectation.
Right.
And we did,
we did good.
Anything from even just the 4-year stint, first enlistment, and got out all the way through the 30-year career aviator.
Yeah.
That standard of perfection is
It's unobtainable in the civilian
correct.
world.
And it is our superpower. I'm gonna put that on the line and say that one. It's our superpower that we have the ability to rise to that occasion. Now, not everybody else can.
Yeah.
Especially in the civilian world, it's not really something that anybody does or wants to do. Like the sacrifice that it takes to be perfect is incredible. Of how many hours do you guys put in a week when you were perfect? Could you count them? I doubt it. 40, 60, 80, 100. When you're deployed, it's 24/7, 365. As long as you're deployed, you're on. You are in perfect mode. Like, that is an incredible standard to uphold for any length of time, let alone what we did. So,
right. Yeah. There's no such thing as a bad day. I mean, you can have a shit attitude. I've had plenty of them while I was downrange, but you still got to do the job, and you have to do it. You have to be in the exacting standard.
well, I mean,
because
right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shut up there because I've really pontificated. So I'm going to let you take this one back and make us keep us light.
No worries. No worries. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. And I love that. That's why what I'll say to anyone listening is, I mean, I've already said it a couple times in this episode. I want to keep this in the humor vein as much as possible, but we're going to deal with some real shit. Brian Belden quoted it last week, and I love you, Brian, but I am stealing this from you. It was only like 10% great times, 90% of it was shit. Dealing with the mundane, the big blue encroaching into AFSOC, the changes, the ROE changes, and those things. So we all dealt with it in different ways. And one thing that I really, so I'll say this about this podcast. A lot of people say that because I've gotten lots of messages. I mean, I've had dudes and chicks crawl out of the woodworks I haven't spoken to in like 12, 13 years, that when I left Gunships, I thought they hated me. Telling me how important this is and that they loved it. It brought them back. It was this bringing them back to these places. When I decided to do this, I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for somebody with better stories than me, because I don't have all the stories. I mean, look, if you were, in the fourth between 07 and 11 when I was there, I'll be upfront and honest. I was duties not to include flying to NIF more times than I was active. I busted my shoulder after my first rotation, and I just never could get back up in a long term. I just kept having issue after issue. I am not even remotely in the category of so many people that I've spoken to and that will be on the show and things like that. I'm just driving the train. Whatever happens in the passenger compartment happens in the passenger compartment. I feel honored just to have served with these brothers and sisters. And anyway, I had this dream like 07, 08. Don't ask me why, but I was trying to call Stan. Like I said, we were friends. And he was deployed or something, and I couldn't get a hold of him. But in the dream, I called his phone number, and his voicemail was this AC-130 Gunship hotline. And the voicemail just came up, death on call, leave your coordinates. And I just was like, what the hell? And I kept calling back in the dream, trying to get a hold of him. It just kept coming up, death on call, leave your coordinates. And I was like, huh. And so when I was trying to put this together, because I believe capturing this GWOT gunship story is so important, that's what I could come up with. So that's where it came from. It didn't come from the 70 to 71, which I had an old school gunner reach out and was like, oh, death on call. That's what we called ourselves in 7071. That's fantastic. That's not where I got this from. But that being said, what I'm trying to do here is allow a space, an opportunity for anyone that wants to try to decompartmentalize this, to do it. You know, what they can and can't say. Obviously, I'll preface it again, we're never going to butt up against classified, period. Drilling down that deep. I don't know any ADCs. If anybody out there does and wants to send them my way, deathoncallpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to ask some questions. However, this is about the crews, what we felt, good, bad, right, wrong, and different, and getting there, getting something to come out in terms of an opportunity, because we were always told to be quiet professionals, never talk about anything. And that, I'll just be honest, and people can just hate me for it. That is incorrect in every capacity, because I ended up in so many different positions after I got out, because I never had a chance to deal with any of this shit up front, because I never wanted to be permanently deniffed, permanently disqualified. I'm talking about shit that perturbed me, you know, just really needed to be let out. There wasn't a safe place to do that. I don't need a safe space, but at the same time, we all needed a place to talk about some shit besides the 20-30 minute debrief, unless it was a WIC line and then it was a 4-hour debrief that no one cared about.
Me the day, yeah, I fell asleep in those.
Yeah, right. So
It's a good thing the fridge
we'll get
was
back
full
on
of
the
beer.
line. I'm telling you, dude. But at like 1:32 in the morning, when they're on hour 3 of a WIC debrief, and you're like,
Dude,
oh,
what I
don't
love is
care.
the fact there's like times where it's like, oh yeah, you can't have, you know, booze in the official debrief. All right, hey, crew, anybody anything for the official debrief? No? All right, cool. Let's go to the unofficial one. Somebody get a beer from the fridge.
Right.
You know, that's-
There's a rule.
Like-
there was a rule about that.
We
Fuck,
never had that.
We
at the
never had that
Fourth.
at the fort. Holy shit!
I haven't even emptied the cooler yet. People are cracking beer 2 or 3.
Well, dude,
And,
Pelt, that was
you know-
always our responsibility, right? Like, you know, well, I'm not loading cargo, but I am loading the fucking, you know, beer for the TDY. So,
Right.
hey, load, is it on the, yeah, it's on the ramp. It's tied down. Just throw it in there, whatever you need. You got your lunch. And yes, there's, you know, stuff for after we arrive.
Yeah. So we'll get back to some lighter stuff. I'm really trying to connect with the reason behind this. And there's, like I say, you know, at the beginning of all of these, this will never be about me. This is about y'all. My stories aren't interesting enough to justify any of it. It is about y'all, the guys that made it happen. The guys that, to this day, like I said last week, you know, I trust my brothers and sisters with my lives, but not my money or my wives. And so I'm happy to be here and doing it. And I give credit to it. I think it was Master Sergeant Wilmon that told me. Anyway, real quick, and then we're going to get to the last 2 segments on this. Ian, what was your best TDY, and what is the most embarrassing gunship story? Don't let it detract from Tales from the Gun Deck or gunship shenanigans.
Okay. So what do you want first?
Best TDY.
All right. Well, there's always the first TDY, which was an interesting story. But you had mentioned another guy that, you know, maybe for a future podcast, he was on that TDY. So I might save that stuff for later. So,
Okay.
best TDY, I think was, trying to think, because like, I mean, you know as well as I do, most of, at least the time that I was in the gunship, was more deployments than it was TDYs.
Yeah.
But the best one was probably, I did a trip out to McCord, and we were doing, you know, working with users and stuff like that. Let's see. I think there was, yeah, how long ago was this? The statute of limitations we talked about. But it's still just myself. So there's the shenanigans, if you will. So we're out, you know, having a good old time. And, you know, just hanging out downtown. So we go to dinner. Like that's, the standard, like when you're GWI, right? Like, there's, you get down, there's the lobby beer, and then there's the shower beer, and then there's the waiting for the taxi cab beer. So all of that to be said, like, have a good time, right? But the meat and point to the story is like, we go out and have a good time and we come back and like, there's the one sober driver that's going to drive us back, right? Like the DD, man. Awesome. You're the greatest. I was not that guy that night, but we ran out of seats I decided like, hey, like I'm 5'5", 5'5", nothing, like 135 pounds, at this time in my life. Because of course, gain a little weight as you get older. But anyway, like, it's like, hey, we need to get, they pick up, he's going to drive us from downtown, right? Like he's sober, he's going to get us back to the base. But like we ran out of seats. Like, what are we going to do? So I'm like, hey, I got a good idea. The rental has like a really deep trunk area. So I'm like, all right, hey, you guys sit in the seats. I'm going to hide back here. And like, I'm like, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I will be back here. Look, like, they're not going to see me. It's all good. And I climb into the back of the van and we head to the base and we get through the gate, which is the biggest thing. And then we get on base. And so not only like, I'm like, it's not like I'm, not able to be there, but like, we get on the base with me like hiding back there, hiding quote unquote, like it's okay, I'm there, I'm just not in, seatbelt, whatever. But like, so I get on base and I think the funniest thing was we make it all the way back to billeting after having this epic time downtown, having a good time. I think we had the day off, which is probably why I was probably feeling like that. But I get back to the hotel and like, I have this weird awareness. And again, I don't know, maybe this goes back to the gunship training of like always thinking about something. But I get back to my room after making it back on base, hiding in a trunk so everybody can get back safely. Thanks to this, I still got to try to remember who the dude that got us back that was smart enough not to drink and drive us back. But we get back to billeting. I get back to my room and I'm like, oh shit, I've still got laundry in the dryer. I did that before we went out. Like apparently I thought it was a good idea to do laundry. Like it was a long TDY. So I go down to the laundry area billeting and I'm like, shit, there it is. There's my stuff. Throw it back into, I don't know if it was a bag or whatever, but I get back up to the room. I have the wherewithal to fold my laundry and then like, you know what? Hey, how about I have another drink on, that I had in my room? Like, that's a good idea because I'm so bombed out of my mind. The good idea, add more booze. It's a great idea. So I get into the shower. I take a shower. I get out. I get cleaned up. I get dressed after having this other drink and I sit down and like, I'm like, oh no, the room's spinning. And like, of course, then I proceed to bring that alcohol back to the world, but at least I had made it the whole way. And like the hindsight, funny story to this is the hindsight that I was bombed to begin with, after having a good time with my gun crew and everybody else. And, I made it all the way back to the base after these shenanigans to get back on the base and then get back to my room. Remember, I have my laundry and now I'm going to throw up. Like, it was just like, really? Like, now this is going to happen? But like, so that's more of like the kind of the funnier part. But I think like one thing I want to throw with this was kind of like how I said, hey, there was the one guy that was smart enough to take care of us. Like when we went out, like the shenanigans, like there was a phrase that was given to me or told to me like early on in my career was we roll gunship deep. And like, that was one thing I remember, like when you talked about like shenanigans and whatever, like when we go out, whether it's socially to do stuff like that or just for whatever reason, we roll gunship deep, 13, 14 member crew, whatever, which always made it hard to get reservations somewhere. But point being is like, we took care of each other, but there was still the same, like, like there's the booth monkeys, the dumb gunners that were pointing in first, the people, forward at 245, whatever, like we're going to give each other shit, right? Because that's my brother, that's my sister. Like, yeah, I'm going to give you shit. Like, oh, what? You can't track correctly? You can't do this correctly? You can't load the gun? Whatever. But like when it came down to it and like we were out of there and we rolled gunship deep somewhere, like somebody starts fucking with them, you're not fucking with one guy, you're fucking with the entire crew. And I've seen it.
The whole fraternity of,
everybody, right? Like it's the fact of like, yeah, I know. And I've had that happen. Like, oh yeah, dumbass Loadmaster, just sit back there and do nothing. Dumbass pointing in first gunner, like do your thing. But like we're out there and like some Joe nobody or, whoever starts to fuck with me. I know I've got 12 other people that are backing me up.
Even if they don't like you.
Exactly. Because you're a fucking Spectre or you're a Spooky guy, whatever. You're a gunship guy. You're not a gunship guy, right? Like that goes back to what you're talking about. That was that pride. That's what I think, like for the almost 20 years that I've been in the military, like that there has been nothing like being in the gunship community. And whether it was because of what we did or the standard or whatever, like it was just its own thing that was like nothing else. So like that's probably my story that I can think of. I mean, I've got other ones, but that's probably one of the funny to like also like the serious side of things that I wanted to bring up was the fact that like that mentality, like that pride, and that going back to like what John said earlier in the podcast about the patch. Like when we checked out, I don't know if it was the same way for you guys in the 4th, but like when we checked out at the 19th, it was you went and did your check ride and then you came back in and you didn't know if you passed till you got to the debrief, right? And it was, so-and-so did this, but they passed Q1. And you had the 19th SOS patch that they tore off your arm and then they put the squadron patch on you and they pinned it on you. So they basically punch you in the arm, right? And that is something that I haven't seen anywhere else. That transition from being a student to being a member of the squadron and being a gunship guy. Like that's something that I don't know if they do it anywhere else in the Air Force, so I can speak to as my own experience, but like that was something that I took pride in. That patch I still have. That was pinned on me as, a young A1C becoming a gunship loadmaster. Like that's something that I took pride in. And that's something that like, aside from just the fun times we had, like that pride in it too was something that was different. So, and like nowhere else.
That's good stuff. All right, Big Johnny Ship. What about you? Best TDY?
Best TDY.
And for the most part, gunship TDYs aren't.
No, they really aren't. We don't get to do cool shit like, well, maybe they do now. I've seen.
No, we do cool shit. We just don't get to go anywhere pretty because it's always like Campbell or Savannah.
That's true from our time frame. I've seen this new J model. I've seen some news reports out there of going to Hawaii and maybe I think they even went to Korea. Like they've done some cool shit. Like and gone to some cool places.
They've got the performance. We don't.
That's true. God, there were so many good.
It seemed like that one you went out to around Utah was pretty good.
Yeah, that was going to be one of the ones that was at the top of the list. So we went to Dugway, Army Proving Grounds, southwest of Salt Lake City there, and it's an interesting base. It's out in the middle of the desert. They do some secret squirrel shit there. But we were there for an exercise at their airfield, and our customer requested no uniforms for me because I was going as the liaison. So let me preface that one. I did not go as aircrew. I went as the planner, and so this was the first time that Spectres had gone to Dugway, at least in modern memory. Maybe they had long time ago, but nobody had any intel on it. And so this was all new experience for us. So I show up at Dugway, and like most military bases, you roll in, you show them your ID, they let you on. Yeah, Dugway is a little different. So I get a special ID card. It's like a get out of jail free card. And there's no ranks, no nothing. This is like the first time I've ever experienced anything like this before in my career. And so I'm just John. And so I go and meet the customer's liaison with me. And he is high speed, low drag, like in the truest form of high speed, low drag. He's asking me all these questions about when the air crew's getting there, when the plane's getting there, like asking me all the maintenance questions, like, hey, when are the maintenance cats getting here? When's ammo getting here? And what are we doing with that? Like way intense. And I'm like, oh, like I know that they sent a semi truck with all the ammo on it. And he's like, well, do you got their phone number? And I'm like, no, I don't have their phone number. Like I can call back to base and get that information. We're driving around together, and I'm like, hey, there goes our ammo, because I recognize the markings on the truck. And he slams these brakes on, flips this bitch around in the middle of the base on this 2-lane dirt road, or not dirt road, it's paved, but in the middle of nowhere. We're doing about 120 to catch up to this semi truck on base. With nothing but ID cards that are like, hey, if you have a problem with us, please go talk to this other unit on base. And I'm like, holy shit, we are totally going to get busted on this one. That was a really cool experience. To walk into an Army lieutenant colonel's office and at the airbase, and for him to just ask me, well, what are your rules? Like, I'm here to ask him what his rules are. And he just asked me, well, what are my rules? And I'm like, oh, where you can park. So like for those listening that aren't gunship guys and have that experience, when you've got ammo on board, you have certain distances you're supposed to park away from things. And he's like, well, do you just want to park out front? And I'm like, that's an option? Like literally within walking distance of base ops. And I'm like, yep, let's do that. And
Rockstar parking.
And so it was one hell of an experience to be able to walk in. And outside of all the shenanigans of fun of screwing around and speeding on base, driving a Humvee without a Humvee certification, driving onto a live impact range without EOD, like that was a new experience. That's cool in the Army, apparently. Not in the Air Force, but in the Army it was. They were like, yeah, just drive in our tracks as we drag this target out into the middle of the impact range. That was a new experience. Scary as shit.
They're more guidelines than.
So that was pretty sweet. But to actually be treated as a true expert, it was the first time I was never questioned. Like no one ever like second guessed me to say, well, are you sure about that? It was, you tell us what your rules are and we'll accommodate. And that was it. And I was like, holy crap, this is the greatest experience, because it was a hell of a confidence booster to be able to roll in, set this whole thing up for the crew, put on a good face for the customer, build all this rapport, and then walk out and get on a commercial plane and fly home. At the end of it, that was pretty awesome to be able to set future relationships up with the customer and the 16th SOS. Like that, like if I can, because I know this is really long and I really ramble, but one of the coolest things about gunships is, I don't know if anybody read the book. Shit, I can't think of who wrote it. Oh, McChrystal. Stan McChrystal wrote the book Team of Teams.
Yeah.
And it holds true with gunships like to a T, that as long as the customer knows one good dude from the unit, then the whole unit is good. Like your reputation is what the unit's reputation is. And if you fuck it up, you fucked it up for the whole unit. And walking out and knowing that I had done a good job with the creme de la creme of customers, that I was like, that is freaking cool. So that is my greatest TDY story. Not the best shenanigans, but my best TDY.
Well, we're not there yet. So Okay, guys, we'll do like a 10-second pause, and then I'm going to intro.
Welcome to our group therapy class. Tales from the gun deck, scuffs on boots and bad decisions. Tales from the gun deck, where the checklist meets poor life choices.
All right, so rolling into one of the last segments, and this is going to be Tales from the Gun Deck. Stories about crew members or yourself making poor life choices. We'll roll it back to you, Captain Stan Hain.
Boy. Some more shenanigans, huh?
Well, we're not shenanigans yet. These are Tales from the Gun Deck.
Yeah.
And they can be in the shenanigans ballpark, but shenanigans and tales are two different things.
Right. All right. Well, let's see. If I had a tale from the gun deck, I know like one of the things they had talked about last week was like, I remembered they'd talked about, I think it was an issue of like I remember it as the breach block, but it was basically like the big block that like,
That in the 105
yeah,
that fell out, the 40 pounder.
in a breach,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So like, it was the same kind of thing. Like I had an instance.
And this doesn't necessarily have to be a gun deck related story.
Right.
It's just that's what the segment's called. So if it is, cool. If not, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, there's that, but so Tales from the Gun Deck. All right, now I'm gonna switch up to because like maybe from that like part of like being a gunship was, and you can probably attest to it, and I don't know if John did because of like who was on it, but like so we did what are called tail swaps. So like we're taking an airplane to or from wherever it needs to go, right? So there's kind of two stories into this that are more, I guess, probably interesting and fun. The first one is we made it to a location and we had to stop and get gas. And so at the time I was, a smoker. And aside from that, that kind of plays into it. But we stop, we're getting fuel. And while we're at this place, there are some people from the local host nation that kind of come up to like essentially kind of guard the area, if you will. But like one of the things too about airplanes is like airplanes are a sovereign, extension of the country. So nobody else is supposed to come on without formal, recognition or authorization, whatever. All that to be said, as the Loadmaster, my job was the paratroop door, because obviously the other one had a 105 millimeter howitzer sticking out of it, so it didn't exist on the C-130. But anything in regards to that, like I'm standing in the door, just kind of standing there, like I'm basically making sure nobody else is getting off. But there was a guy from the host nation that's kind of standing there, and he's probably my age, like early 20s, right? So he comes up to me and he's just kind of like, hello, how are you? Whatever, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he kind of makes the symbol. He's like, hey, do you have a cigarette, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I grab one out of my flight suit and, in airplanes, you got dry air, whatever. And the reason I'm saying that is like, I go to hand him a cigarette out of my pack, and he takes the cigarette, but like when he takes it, like, I don't know if it was the air or whatever, but it had dried it out so bad that all the tobacco falls out of the freaking cigarette. Right? So, but it's not like he's pissed or anything like that. He looks at me like my 5-year-old son. Like I just took the lollipop or told him he couldn't have, muffins for lunch or something like that. Like that disappointed look. Like, I mean, I know you have kids, Pelt and John, I don't know if you do as well, but like, it's just that disappointed look. I'm like, and I'm like, hey,
you
hold on
just broke his heart.
Right, exactly. So I go back over to my bag where I've got a full carton that I took from before. I grab a whole pack, I open it up, I'm like, hey, here you go. And like, I pack it and everything, I open it up and I hand him a cigarette and the whole pack. And he's like, oh, no, you don't need it. I'm like, no, take the whole pack, right? And like, it's not so much that like there's that part that like I'm like, okay, am I causing an international incident by trying to like, not like give him the cigarette that like the tobacco falls out, whatever. But like it was after that he was ready to light it up right there. And I'm like for those of you familiar with the C-130, the single point refueling panel that like the fuel is hooked up to is like right there. And I'm like, pretty sure there was something in there or in the regs about like not doing this so close to the airplane. So I'm like, hey, hold on a second. So I kind of get off the plane. There's another crew member that had come back to kind of like guard the door, if you will. And like we kind of walk away the appropriate amount of feet away from the airplane, like, hey, I'll have a cigarette with you, man, and stuff like that. And I'm like the reason I bring up that story, like just the tale is like this. I'm this like 21, 22-year-old guy, and I'm like, I just caused an international incident because I pissed off a guy at this location we're at, you know, and because I gave this cigarette where all the tobacco falls out or whatever. But like, it was interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, like there's other parts of that story, but I don't know if you want to go to John to like talk about like other good tales.
Okay.
Well, shoot,
Well, time out. Before we
Okay.
get to you, John, I'm going to go ahead and throw a Tales from the Gun Deck at you, John, that I was forwarded today. And I want you to talk about this, and you can add your own piece after the fact. But I think the audience wants to hear about how a gun crew fed you 4,000 calories a night of Otis Spunkmeyer muffins for an entire
Well,
deployment.
it's funny you bring that up. That was going to be my story.
Well, good. I'm glad we got
there. So there's a little bit of a setup to this. For anybody that knows me and has known me for at least a while, knows that I get hangry. So when I don't eat, I get pissed off. And it's been that way for a very, very long time. So I'm about ready to go on my first deployment. And as at the time, the EWO wasn't allowed to get out of the chair. Like it was no, you need to be in the chair in case we get shot at. Therefore, you can do your job. So here I'm thinking like, man, not about getting shot at, not about doing my job, but how the hell am I going to eat? Because if I can't get up, how am I going to eat? Well, somebody brings it up and says, hey, you know what? The gunners, they'll make you food. There's a little oven just aft of 245 and they'll heat up sandwiches and pizzas for you. But the story goes that I was told you don't want to piss them off and decline their food, because if you decline their food, they're not going to bring it to you anymore because they're going to get mad because they spent their time to make you food that you turned your nose up at. And I'm like, shit.
They weren't doing shit else.
So I'm like, fuck, I better eat because I don't want to go hungry. And so the crew doesn't know this about me at the time. At some point, they figure out that I won't say no to food, like at all. And at that point, not going to name names, Brad Little, they decide that they're going to start playing this. How much can we actually feed him? How much will he eat before he says no?
Augustus Gloop.
True story. Absolute true story. I don't know who has the log and if they still have the log, but they started writing that shit down. So if they still got it, that'd be awesome if you guys sent like a picture of that. I would love to frame that and put that shit up in my office. That they started keeping tracks of how many calories they fed me, like how much of each thing they fed me, whether or not it was personal pan pizzas, Otis Spunkmeyer muffins, those like ham sandwiches that were 95% bread and like 5% meat and cheese. They'd like put like 6 of them together and make one sandwich and bring it in. My record probably stands, I believe. Now, I'm going to hope that somebody corrects me because I don't necessarily know the actual answer, but I believe it's somewhere around like 6,000 calories in a 4-hour or 6-hour flight.
It's like one MRE.
I actually gained weight on that first deployment, believe it or not. For those of you that have never deployed before, that is kind of an unheard of thing. Everybody develops some kind of fucking tapeworm pretty much, and everyone loses weight on a deployment. Not this guy. So yeah, I ate a shit ton of food every flight. At some point, I did start saying, no, I can't eat anymore, or I stopped eating. I think that was how that went down. If anybody has a better recollection, feel free to let us know.
Well, if we can get Rob Buzzle on here, I don't know if one of the crew guys.
Rob was my FOCO. Felix was my nav on that one.
Okay. Well, if we get Pastor Cole or Rob Buzzle in here, or I extended the invite to Brad Little and he read it and didn't respond. So I don't know who else is your gun crew, but
I think it was Izzy Root was on that one with me, Israel.
Oh, man.
So let me reach out to him and see if we can't get him on for one and if he can clarify the story for us. But at some point I decided that I wasn't going to eat anymore because I was starting to get sick. And so they started just like they would originally just drop off Otis Spunkmeyer muffins like in the wrapper. Yeah. And then when I stopped eating them, they'd start adding like every 2 or 5 minutes probably. They would come by and put another muffin on the table and then put another muffin on the table. And then when they realized that I was stopped eating, they started unwrapping them and be like, well, now you got to eat them. And so I think at some point I had like a dozen fucking muffins stacked up on my desk. And that was when I started realizing I was pretty naive at the time. I was like, holy shit, what the fuck's wrong with these guys? Why do they keep bringing me fucking food? I can't eat anymore. But yeah, that was a really good time. And I'm really glad because that was a boring as fuck trip. I'm glad that I was able to provide some form of entertainment for the rest of the crew because, yeah, we spent a lot of time burning holes in the sky. So it was pretty awesome. Gosh, who was the cat that sat next to me? I can't remember who that was. Shit, who was that? I can't think of the guy's name. Because the Gunners got him involved in it too. They started making him be a pusher. And I was pretty pissed off when I figured it out because he started smiling and laughing about it. And I was like, it was like a fucking Brutus moment. Like, oh, yeah, too Brute? Like, here you're supposed to be reporting to me and helping me.
Wouldn't help.
Like everybody on the crew is involved in this one. Damn it. So yeah, that was my lots of calories per flight for an entire deployment. Pelt, do you have another version of that story that I don't necessarily have full knowledge on? Oh, we must have lost him because he's not responding to us anymore.
Well, it's not in the bubble. He didn't fall asleep.
That would have been a bad idea. Did is that like a true statement? Like, yeah, I can hear you.
Hear me? Yeah.
Okay, sorry if that was my mic cut out. No, I don't. I don't
have
asleep
back there.
That's these stupid Bluetooth mics. No, I don't know another story. Rob Buzzle reached out to me and was like, you have to ask him about this, about the 4,000 calorie meals. But he also is set. I love it because we've become like a whole piece of one of the schools we can't talk about.
We lost you again, Luke. Oh, man. Talk about gunship shenanigans. Here is this professional podcast, and we get the host just falling off.
I ain't falling off, asshole.
You're just asleep back there again.
No, I'm not sleeping.
I'm going to go check on the loan.
Well, if fucking Shipley would have been on time and weren't an hour late to start tonight, God, I mean, I'm sitting here blaming Brian Belt, and guess who's getting blamed next week?
Brian,
funny.
I feel you, brother. I feel you.
Fucking look, I'm just going to say this to anybody who potentially wants to be on the show. Please own a PC that was made in the last 3 years. Like, it's 2026, and if you don't own one, I need to know up front because I gave you fair warning, Jon Shipley.
You did. It's like me. I'm not gonna try and shirk away from that one. My laptop had 0% battery life because it hadn't been turned on in about 6 months. So that one's on me. I should have turned it on earlier today. So I'll own it. I got it. Thanks for waiting for me. Look at that. I shut that one down in a hurry. Or did we just lose him again? Fell back asleep.
No. Y'all can all fuck off.
Dude, this is going into another story. Like you talk about like Justin. I don't know if you did this too, but Like I used to listen to booth ISO just to stay awake. Like, so we had our private net that like, you know, how it was set up, like everybody that was in the booth, like the load could listen to it as well, which kind of ties into like more tales from the gun deck. Like I'll never forget like a mission I was on, like we had a long transit from the op area back to home plate, if you will. And like, I'm like, you know, of course we're facing.
I am back up.
You there? Okay.
Hey, you
Yes.
interrupted, man. Way to go, load. Interrupt the P1.
God damn. Dude, so to catch you up there, Pelt, like I'm talking about a story like we're like, you know, booth ISO. Like you pull that up and I can listen to the cats in the booth. Like, did you have the same thing on the U?
We had, not really.
But it
was very similar though.
Yeah, like for the listeners, it was basically like the communication on the airplane was set up like, you know, who could talk to who based off all the crew positions. So what I'm talking about is basically on the H, you had the booth, which was, you know, your EO, IR, TV, and I could tie into it as well. But it was just those three. That's usually where they shit talk the FOCO, which is always fun. I got stories about that too. Like anyway, like on the story I'm telling, like we're on a long transit back from the op area back to the home plate. And like, I'm trying to stay awake. It's a long night. The transit area was a long way, you know, or the op area was a long way from where we were. And like, I'm just trying to stay awake. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to pull up booth ISO. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to like, I'm not going to drop the names, but like the two cats in the booth and like they found something on the ground and it's the IR and the TV. Like the TV's like, hey, I got something on the ground. And like the IR, you know, slows to it, looks at it, and he's like, oh, it's this, this, and this. He's like, you don't know what the fuck it is. It's this and this. He's like, bullshit. All you knew was a freaking light. You're the TV. Like, you don't know it. Like, and this is literally the only thing that is keeping me awake because like as a load, like you're face down, ass up, back in a bubble. Like you got that tent around you and it's dark for a reason, right? But like, oh, hey, be laying down in the dark for an extended period of time and don't fall asleep. Okay. So like part of what I did to stay awake was like pull up booth ISO because like these two cats, it was like, I think it was I don't know if it was my first or my second road, but like these two guys would keep me awake. Like I would pull up booth ISO just to stay awake because like these two guys talking about shit and like, and of course the EO was just laughing his ass off. While these two are talking, like that's what kept me awake. Like, do you guys ever talk about like 7 Degrees to Kevin Bacon or whatever? Like all that, like, you know, because you're talking about like long transit time. Like that's how you stayed awake. Like, oh yeah, he's in this movie with this guy and this guy and this guy, right? Like, but like that's one thing I'll never forget is like just being on that long ass transit and like these two guys are talking, like they're arguing over whatever they found on the ground. And he's like, oh, no, it's this. It's a Talus cycle. No, it's not. It's this. It's da-da-da-da-da. And like that's what kept me awake.
You know, that's awesome. One of my favorites is whenever one of the crew had the iPod connector like spliced in on their headset or on their helmet.
You're jamming out on the way to an op.
Yeah. That was the bee's knees, especially on those fucking long transit times of driving somewhere for a really long time. And you're like, all right, somebody pull up some tunes and keep us going.
I remember my engineer doing that like a couple of times. He was like, hey, you know, he asked pilot like, hey, can I plug in some tunes? And like, you know, it was usually like for that reason, like to keep people awake or whatever. Like it was that dead air time of like you're on the way there or on the way back. So like they would plug in with the cord to like their iPod or Zune. I don't know if that's dating myself or whatever.
Yeah, we're old. It's
like,
okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, except well, yeah, like I said, there's like dudes that are retired that I knew from training. But yeah, I remember those guys like plugging stuff in just to keep us awake.
Pelt, what else you got, bro? Oh, we lost him again. Holy crap.
Oh, that's all right. We'll
just keep talking because I'm having a blast.
Yeah, right? Well, dude, that's the funny part too is like Justin and I have known each other for like what? Like, oh, shoot. Like since 2006, you know, and I think like one of the coolest things about like being a gunship guy is like, and like my wife can attest to this, like we got together like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I think it was when was that UCT? Like my wife actually surprised me. It was like, hey, we're gonna go see Pelt. I'm like, what? Yeah, oh, all right. So off we went. And anyway, like we went to go visit him. And like one of the things I think that is the coolest thing, and whether it's a gunship thing or whatever, but like we just like caught up, like nothing had happened, right? So it was nuts. Like we just, we're talking about stuff and whatever. Hold on, watch this. Hey, what's up?
Hold for like 4 seconds so I can restart our recording.
I hope she puts this
Oh my
in
God!
the broad.
Please put this in.
Yes. Okay. All right, dude. We'll pause the mics and we'll wait for you.
Recording, and then we may have to reset. We have to finish.
All right, man. All right, see ya.
Oh, that's
Bye.
gonna be hilarious.
That's awesome. All right, man. I'm gonna pause my mic.
Okay.
And I'll wait for him. All right. Is he back?
There we go. He started it again. Is he back? You back? I think we should just keep jamming on it until he does come back.
Yeah.
I think I was gonna say I think you're. I've had the same experience with gunship cats across the board in terms of you can not see somebody for almost 20 years and just
like
pick up where you left off. It's kind of crazy, but I also think that it makes us really shitty friends to civilians. Because civilians need that like daily affirmation piece of the puzzle. And we're like, I don't fucking understand. My best friend I haven't talked to in 10 years, but he's still my best friend. And I can call him tomorrow and say that I need you to bring a shovel, a bag of lye, and a roll of plastic. And they're like, where you need me, bro. And and so it's awesome for us to be able to do that with our with our friends and our brothers.
I sent him a message. I guess he said he needs to like log back out. So do you still have the thing? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do. Okay. Yep. So we're gonna log out and then log back in. All right. Cool. See you in a minute.
Okay, for those still listening in the great, wonderful technological interruptions that we just had, this is not just a civilian issue. This is how it was in gunships all the time. I have reset everything I could reset, and I couldn't stop the EWO and the CSO from talking, which is fairly commonplace, because it was still uploading. Thank you, technology, beeps and squeaks. I'm glad that they had a chance to talk without me, and I will be sure to upload everything they said because I could hear it. I just couldn't respond.
I was going to say, it was all about you, man. Like,
I heard, and thank you for that. Yeah, and we picked up right where we left off. I'm sorry, I'm frustrated as shit right this second. 2 weeks in a row, technology issues. If somebody wants to help me with tech shit, cool. My teenage son is like,
That's it. Get wagging on it. Yeah.
It does happen. It's shit. It's real life.
I'm trying to make him like the producer behind the scenes of this because he wants to be an audio engineer. And he has zero patience. It's just Hulk smash because he's larger than I am. And like, I would have to shillelagh him in the kneecap to make it an even fight. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
So, why did you slap your dad upside the head?
Yeah, do it. Like, dude, the funny part is I remember when Wyatt was sitting in a freaking bouncer on the floor, and now what is he, like 16 or something like that?
He's 16 now, and he's like 6'3", almost 6'4".
Yeah. So,
his brain's, it's huge. He's like the smartest kid I've ever met.
Yeah.
But he has zero patience.
Must be from his mom. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's from his mom.
His mom graduates with her bachelor's, and she did it in like 29 months. In May, just hardcore straight through, and then starts her master's.
You married up. Congratulations.
Guaranteed. I married up.
Yeah, exactly. Go back to. I still remember when you talked about like, hey, we're going back to get married. This was with 06.
Yeah, December of 06, Christmas exodus from Altus.
Yeah, right. Anyway.
Speaking of which, we hit our 19th anniversary in December, working on 20. And anyway, but yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm married
Wow.
up. Thank you. I'm married up. My kids are better than I deserve, and they all got the short end of the shaft. It is what it is,
Welcome to AFSOC. Tip of the spear. tip of the shaft.
pretty much. So, guys, we're gonna roll in.
Everyone needs a hey in their life.
Gunship shenanigans. Welcome to the Chaos Club. Gunship shenanigans. Precision-ish with extra grub.
We're gonna roll into gunship shenanigans. Any types of shenanigans yourself, anyone else. The rules are if you're not friends with them and you don't have any contact with them, don't name drop them. But other than that, everything else is fair game. And I will preface once again, we really need to figure out what the statute of limitations is on shenanigans. Period. Dot. Because I keep getting asked that question. I don't know it. I don't know an ADC. If there's one out there listening that wants to let me know, I would appreciate it. Because there's shenanigans that need to be told.
Well, you know OSI is listening.
Always.
Hey guys, good to see you again.
You had to be a staff sergeant to do that. But
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. But gunship shenanigans, we're gonna flip it up. Shipley, you're up first.
Shit. Yeah. So speaking of tail swap, that was most of my experience on shenanigans. So shenanigans story do I tell from that? I only did one tail swap. I planned a crap ton of them, but I only actually flew one of them. And so I guess I'll just tell the Azores story to start with, and then maybe at some future date I can tell more of the story. So we flew all night from Hurlburt, like took off in the evening and then landed in the Azores, which is, for anybody who doesn't know the geography, it's the middle of the ocean. It's owned by Portugal. It's just like a big fucking rock.
It's Brian's story.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily Brian's story, but a lot of shit always happens in the Azores. So because you've just flown all night and you're not passing up the opportunity to drink. Yeah, we landed by, I think it was like 7 a.m. and by the time we got to billeting, I think it was about 9, and started drinking and called a cab to take us downtown. And fast forward to all the shenanigans. There may or may not be a glass mug stein thing for one of the bars there that charged like 20 euros for a beer. Like I think I bought it from them.
That's how you know it's good.
And it was my first time in Europe, so I didn't know any of like the rules on tipping. Apparently tipping's not a thing, and their fucking coins are small, but they're worth a lot of money. This is so here we are tipping €1 on €1 beers. So 100% tip on beer. So needless to say, the beer just kept flowing because everyone thought it was awesome. So we were never without a drink in our hand. At some point, we ended up not downtown, but somewhere else, because somebody had said there was this cool bar somewhere. So we got in a cab and drove over there. And it turned out that this little part of town, like almost every day, if not like once a week at least, has a bull run, like a legitimate, they run the bulls down their cobblestone streets. And we decided that would be a pretty cool thing to do, but I think it was like about noon and they didn't run the bulls until 5 or 6 o'clock. So €1 tips keep the beer flowing. And I did not know that I ran with the bulls until the next day, and I checked my phone. Actually, it wasn't a phone, it was my portable camera. And I'm going through on the plane the next day, flipping through all the photos, and I'm like, oh shit, like we ran with the bulls. The whole crew is sitting there and we're running, and I've got this picture like with the top of my head, the whole crew, and then like these 3 bulls that are behind us. That was probably the most dumbest thing that I ever did. And if that's the dumbest, that means I was a boring person in the gunship world. So that was probably my funnest experience.
That's good. I like it. I'll allow it.
dude, the Azores.
I love the Azores.
Like
That's a great place.
Dude, the funny part is like just to continue the story. Like same thing. Like we roll in there and we do a normal, I don't know if this was the RON or before, like we were going to try to leave, but number 3 decided it was just going to like piss hydraulic fluid. So we were waiting on an engine. Right? So all that to be said, like it's the same kind of thing. So the night starts and we go get dinner. And I'm pretty sure that was a place where I got like fish on like a lava lock or a lot.
Yeah. Like the steak or the fish on that piece of granite that's
it was like the
scalding
best,
on.
Exactly. It was like the best food I had ever had. Like the best fish, right? So like that was how it started. Like we go and get a dinner, we have, you know, a beer or two, whatever. So I'm like at this time, I don't know, 21, 22. So what am I going to do? Get into shenanigans, right? So like the AC and everybody else being the responsible people that they are, you know, they go back. But it's like me and like the maintainers, right? Because it's a tail swap, you know, are like, all right, what the fuck are we going to do? Like we're walking back because at the time, the gentleman's club that is like right outside the base is closed, right? So, right? So we're walking back and like literally out of like a friggin' movie, there's like 2 cabs that's just right in front of like where we are. Hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, well, we're looking for a good time. It's like 8 or 9 in the evening and that place is closed. So we were just going to go back to the base, right? Just going to go back to lodges. Nope. They're like, hey, you want to go have a good time? You hop in a cab. And of course, like not caring about life at all. We're like, okay. So we all jump in the cab, right? And like, I still remember this, like, because like, of course, at the time, it was probably like 10 minutes away, but like, I'm in the cab, I'm already half tuned up and I'm like, where are we going? Like, it's an island. It can't be that far away. But like, anyway, we wind up at this place and it's like nowhere near where we started. And like, I remember getting out and I'm like, God, it's dark around here. Whatever, you know, I don't care. So like we go inside and like, there's not a whole lot of people there. And like, we're all looking around. It's me. I'm at least not by myself. It was like me and like I said, like the maintainers, maybe the, you know, I can't remember if we had like a gunner scanner, like, you know, that was always like up in the air, like whether there was going to be one coming with us or not. But anyway, like we go into this place and we're like looking around, it's dead. But I go up to the bar and I get like what I'm drinking tonight, a Jack and Coke. And I'm like, you know, hey, I'll take a Jack and Coke. He's like, you must spend €10 minimum. I'm like, excuse me? He's like, oh, you got to spend this. Like, I don't remember what the amount was, but I know he was like demanding that I spend a minimum amount. I'm like, I got nothing else to do. Cool. Give me 2. So like, I've got like double fisted Jack and Cokes and we're at this it's another gentleman's club or whatever you want to call it, but whatever. It's a club and like we're hanging out and this, all I remember is like, it started out as like this, like I get this feeling of like, you need to spend this much or your liver is going to wind up on ice. I'm like, okay. But like I go and sit down and like, it's me and the other cats that are with me. And it starts out as this like really weird kind of feeling. But like by the end of the night, like, and again, I might have had 1 or 2 of said Jack and Cokes, but like by the end of the night, like we're just having a good time. Nobody cares. Nothing's going on. And all I remember was at least eventually winding up back at the base. So at some point I must have gotten back into a cab and made it back to the base and like waking up in the morning going, the hell happened? Like I'm checking, like, well, my liver's still there. There's no incision marks. So I guess it was all right. Cause all I remember are like bits and pieces of like what happened. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm good. And like, we went to like the bowling alley or something like that for food in the morning. And I'm like trying to piece together what happened the night before. And I'm like, all I know is like myself and everybody else that went with me is accounted for. So like, we're good, right? But like that trip was awesome too, because it was like there was that night, and then like again we had issues with the engine. So like an airplane had to come bring us an engine, all that stuff. But like we went and visited like a abandoned volcano and like, what the heck else did we, like we just went out and like saw the island.
Mhm.
So like aside from just the shenanigans of that, like we got to like just kind of go out and do some other crazy stuff. So that was a good time.
Stuff. All right. Well, we have reached the last question with episode 2 tonight, and we will start with you, Stan. Put you right back on the spot. What does the gunship legacy mean to you? What does it mean to have been a gunship guy? What does it still mean?
I mean, I would say the biggest thing is just, I mean, the word itself, like legacy. Like you come from a long line of folks that have done some pretty crazy things. Like the gunship concept from its cradle is pretty crazy. You know, like, hey, we're going to take this big ass cargo plane. We're going to put some artillery pieces and anti-aircraft pieces on it and shoot back at the ground. So you want to talk about like being innovative or whatever. I mean, it's just crazy from its inception, like what has happened with the airplane itself. So I was lucky enough to be in the squadron during, OES and everything that the airplane and the squadron had done. But then I was also part of the move from Hurlburt to Cannon. But the biggest thing I think that I take away is kind of what I had alluded to earlier was the gunship is where I was born and raised in the Air Force. It's my history. It's my legacy. It's my story of where I came from. The lessons, the important, things to think about in my life and in my career and everything started there. Like that was the first place I wound up, straight out of high school through training was in the 16th SOS and being Spectre. And that's something that, I'm almost at retirement age, like, as a guard guy, but ultimately when I first came in the Air Force it was August of 06. So this year I hit 20 years, which is the retirement time and retirement eligibility, if you will. But looking back on it now as a full career, like I got taught lessons in that airplane and in that mission set that I've carried with me through my entire career. And that's a focus, a dedication on what you do, being an expert on what you do. And that's what everybody's going to see. There were two things I always wanted to be remembered for as a crew member. And that was, he was a good dude. He tried to help other people out, was a good guy, was always there. And that he was a smart and good crew member. He was the guy I wanted to fly with. And that was what I wanted to be remembered for. That was the legacy that I wanted. And the one thing I look back on that had started in the gunship community was a pride in who you are and what you are. And like, it doesn't matter the years, like while you took your little communication sabbatical, like John and I were talking about, like you and I, like you remember when Caroline had set up the idea of me coming to visit you. It had been like, I don't know how many years it had been, but it was like, 10, 15 years, something like that, that we had met up at your place down there in Texas. And
Yeah.
it was like nothing happened. It was like we picked up right where we left off, right? Like, and we hadn't seen each other in I don't know how many years. I think it was like I
Right.
came back TDY to Hurlburt when you were still stationed there.
Yeah.
So and this was long after you had left the Air Force. And it was like nothing happened. It was like, hey, dude, you remember this? You remember that? You remember whatever? Like, it was nothing. Like, there's a connection we made in this airplane and in this community that carries beyond. Like, if we went to go hang out at Spectre Island, which was started by the 16th for all you 4th cats, like, if we went there with the entire community right now, like 4th or 16th, we would get so hammered. But not just aside from that, like we would tell so many stories like this tonight.
Right.
Like we would carry on until like 06, 07, 08, like the next day, just talking about this shit. Like that's the biggest thing I take away, the legacy, is that we had all of our experiences, whether the same or different or whatever, but we came from the same place. And being able to talk about that with, you know, the good shit and the bad shit, like we can talk about that with our brothers and sisters because we have that connection. And like, that's what I like, you know, what drew me back to want to talk about on this podcast was like the ability to still talk to people that get it. You know, like we talk about like, you know, all of the experiences that we had, like the only people that truly get it are the people that we were with. And if anything, like people listening to this can be like, oh, so that's what they had to go through or that's what they connect with, you know, and it carries between now and however many years, like it doesn't matter. Like, you know, our kids will probably have kids and you and I will meet up somewhere and be like, so you remember that time when you decided we wanted to like beat a freaking steelhead, like when we were fishing off the coast in Florida? Like it doesn't matter the time frame. But man, that's what I
dude. Cool.
Do you want me to go next?
Yes.
Oh, what's that? Oh, shit. What's that?
because like you guys talk too much.
I know. I think it is.
Fucking having audio issues again.
Oh, shit.
We hear you, so
We can hear you, so that's a good thing.
Good. Okay. Yes. Shipley, go ahead. And to correct you, Stan, it wasn't a steelhead. It was a hardhead.
whatever. All I
Catfish. It was
remember
a
is you
hard-headed catfish, saltwater catfish.
yeah, because you were holding onto it with the pliers, probably that you pulled from your
Because
flight.
they fucking their spines have fucking poison in them, dude. It
Yeah, but
stings
you
like
beat the shit out of it across that was in the apartment before you ever got to the house.
Oh, I know. And I'm so glad that we can talk about this now because the statute of limitations for fish and wildlife violations are 2 years and 1 day.
There you go. You got it. Like it was, but dude, John, this was so before, like, because apparently, like, you remember the house that Justin had?
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming that's the same place. Before
Yeah, the one in
he
the
had
bar.
this-
Yep.
What's it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah.
So before that, he was in an apartment off of like 98.
Oh. I was in Mary Esther.
Yeah.
Well, that's a real nice
So-
part of town.
Yeah. Right. So this was when like Cheyenne was like 1, 2.
Oh,
Just
shit. Yeah,
born.
we're
Yeah,
going old
Was
school.
born in that apartment. Yeah.
Yeah. So like at that point, it was like right down from the apartment. We were like, hey, all right. Now she was probably asleep or whatever, but like we go fishing like right there in the sound. And we're catching, not steelhead, whatever the fuck it was. Like we catch it. We're like, oh yeah, they got fucking poison. They're going to hurt you. He's beating this fucking fish off the fucking ground. Like just
I hate hardheads. They eat your bait. They just fucking destroy your fishing.
that and the fucking crabs. Cause we went to
Yeah.
freaking, what the hell was,
Bar,
yeah, but like, what the hell is the name of the grocery store there?
Winn-Dixie,
Winn-Dixie. We go there and we get some freaking chicken legs just to go crab.
chicken livers and
Yeah.
legs.
into freaking twine and like, oh yeah, let's go down on the Navarre Bridge and we're just going to hang
Tossing
this
out a
shit.
crab.
Yeah. And that's how we caught crab, right?
So I will say this one thing about that apartment, then I'm gonna let you go, John. You left your flight cap in my vehicle one day, and I had these shitty, and this isn't all maintainers. It was just the maintainers that lived next door, and they bump music all. I mean, like 3, 4 in the fucking morning. I had a pregnant wife, and it was just unbearable. And I wore a flight suit. I was an A1C. I was a nobody. And they just didn't fucking care. We had tried to like talk to them. They just like, fuck you, bro. Well, you left your flight cap in my vehicle. I think we went to lunch or something. And I grabbed it and put it on because I saw them outside. And I was like, I'm about to fix this shit. And I put it on. Let me fucking tell you, that next day, they came apologizing to my apartment. Sir, I'm so sorry. Sir, we'll keep the music down. Please don't report us. And I'm like, yeah, you're fucking right. You won't. So it's too late now, but impersonating an officer, it happened. And they shut the fuck up.
That. They thought you were like a lieutenant or a captain or some shit.
Because Shipley left his flight cap in my head. And it's like his first lieutenant's flight cap. And if they were smart enough, those guys, not all maintainers, because they're a hell of a lot smarter maintainers than I ever was as a crew member. But these two particular idiots, I always worried about them catching me out there like pre-flight in an aircraft. And then be like, you're just an A1C, but they never said shit. They were just like, I'm sorry, sir. Please don't tell our commander. I'm like, yeah, you're fucking right. Keep that shit down.
I didn't even know this story. This is the first time I'm hearing it. Holy crap, that's awesome.
God, that's funny. God.
I never realized that actually carried any kind of weight. I always figured that everybody just turned their nose at a lieutenant, was like, whatever.
Yeah, but not to them, because there's like a handful of officers in their whole, unit.
Yeah,
unlike us, where I can't sneeze without hitting 3 lieutenants and a captain.
That's true.
All right, John, tell me about some shenanigans.
Oh, I already told you shenanigans.
I'm sorry, not shenanigans. I'm sorry. Tell me about the legacy. What does it mean? What did it mean? What does it still mean?
Well, I think for me, a lot of it, because I didn't do 20, because I only did 7, and I split my time between U's and H's.
God.
I look at the heritage of what it means, as we were talking earlier about, like the meaning of the shoulder patch, the meaning of hey, look, the 16th is the first to carry the AC-130 moniker. The 4th is the original, the OG AC-40, like tracing it all the way back and being able to say, hey, look, all of, and back to that idea that you carry the unit's reputation, that what good, bad, or indifferent, you take on that reputation, and it's up to you to maintain and improve that reputation. Heritage, I Googled it because I wanted to be able to give some kind of scientific terminology to it, but it's along the lines of a lineage that's passed down over generations. So for me, it's that we got to learn from the old heads, who got to learn from the old heads, who got to learn from the old heads. And hopefully somebody learned something from me along the way in a good way. And hopefully they passed it down to somebody else. And that legacy, that heritage will continue to keep going. I'm a pretty insignificant player when it comes to the gunship legacy. I'm happy and proud to have been a part of it. And it truly is a spot of pride. I'll go on one little tangent about it. When I got out of the Air Force, I went back to school, and on the first day of grad school, I'm like 10 years older than everybody else in school. And so I've got a significant difference in a life experience than all these kids out of undergrad. And they go around the room and they're talking about, and I think the question is some kind of bullshit thing, team building of like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Or like, what is the greatest thing? It came around to that type of a conversation. And I told them at the time in a really blunt way of, I've already done the coolest thing I'm ever going to do. And the most important thing that I'm ever going to do. And I did it before I stepped foot in this classroom. So everything else is downhill from here. I was a fiery, fresh out of the Air Force individual at the time. I think I might refine that statement and say one of the most impactful times in my entire life, and that shaped the country, that shaped the world, that my direct actions got to help bring people home every night will never be surpassed. That brings me an immense amount of joy and pride, and them are fighting words if you want to go toe to toe on talking down to gunship bros and sisters. So For me, it's about the heritage and continuing that heritage and ensuring that everybody that came after us and will come after everybody else that's going to listen to this knows a little something about where they came from.
Roger that. It's good stuff. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate y'all being on episode 2, giving your time and working with me through the technical shit. And I look forward to potentially having y'all back in the future anytime you want to come on, because there's so many stories that can be told and they can't be covered in, a 2.5 hour span. Other than that, I will end with this. I appreciate the vulnerability tonight. I appreciate being real. It's not always going to be humorous and a bag of laughs. But however, I will say this, the next 2 episodes, I'm recording one this weekend, another one the following weekend. It's all gunners. So listener, beware where they're going on several of these stories. So listener, beware. It will make you laugh and probably, bust a seam. But it's not for everybody. I love it. I love having the gunner so willingly throwing it all out there, throwing caution to the wind, and just, I'm going to tell you my story. It is what it is. It's great.
Do you have a booster seat?
Coming. Pretty much. That's not this next one. So I think this weekend I'm recording with Naro and Alexander and potentially Mello. And then the following week, it was supposed to be episode 2, but I've had so many people reach out that I'm recording episodes as I can get them. It'll be the ones I talked about last week. It'll be Jenny, Double D, Tim Wolf, and either Christensen or Mike Farthing. And from there, we have, I think right now I have 9 episodes after tonight on the books. It's amazing. I'm so blessed to have the units wanting to come after, tell their stories. And even more so, I've had several maintainers reach out over this weekend and they want to tell some of their stories. And so at some point we're going to do a maintenance podcast and support asset podcast, because I've got some intel guys and some life support bubbas and, everybody's made the missions happen. So other than that, if you're interested in being on the show and you have anything to do with gunships, reach out to me at deathonCallPodcast@gmail.com or on Facebook Messenger, JL Pelt. Be looking the next 2 weeks, claim some accounts. I'm going to do some shit in social media world, and I'll drop it out on social media and let everybody know where to check it out. But other than that, guys, thank you for your time. Thanks for your service, and you're cleared off.
Thanks, Pelt. Thanks, Stan. Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, man. All right, love you, brother. Blows off
Love
headset.
y'all. Yeah.
Bye.
Adios. See you.
We got gunners in the back seat laughing. Nav with the map, wrong turn, still bragging. Pilot with the coffee cup taped to the dash. Sensor on the scope, eyes locked, talking trash. We roasting the stack, then we ride for each other. Midnight meals, bad jokes, still call you my brother. Or my sister on the gun, steady hand, cold aim. Up here we share secrets that don't fit on the ground the same. This is guns, gas and confession. Late night loops and wild obsession. From the ramp to the front row, hear the stories we hide. Welcome to the cool room inside. We got near-miss tales and you had to be there. That one flight lead lad that swore they didn't scare. The quiet kid who cracked on hour 22. The prank on the new guy's very first crew. We laugh too loud just to lighten the load. Talk dark, talk deep, same bird, same cold. What happens in the stack doesn't always stay above. We're dropping it here. Raw, rough, still love. This is guns, gas and confessions. Yeah. Late night loops and wild obsessions. From the ramp to